CovertGoBlue, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Born
Good,
ready.
because that was not a rhetorical question. CovertGoBlue, are you ready to
Still
stay up
ready.
past midnight drinking blood?
Yeah, totally into that. Just another Saturday night.
Yep. Are you ready to travel across the plain to one of the hottest events of the winter?
Is it Kim and Kanye's second renewal of vows?
Oh, there's going to be some vows, but I'm not sure they're the kind of vows you're expecting. CovertGoBlue,
Mm-hmm.
are you ready to fist some angels?
Personal question, dude. No.
You know,
Who could be
there's
ready for
all
that?
there's always more time in my schedule for a little bit of that action.
Oh
Anyway,
no.
if you crafties answered yes to any of these questions, then you are in for a good time tonight, for we are reviewing Crimson Vow. And for those of you crafties who are listening who can't see, I came attired for a wedding. I, Soren Markov, will be helping to read this set review tonight. So just strap yourselves in, you know. It's not every day that you get a thousands of years old planeswalker on your magic podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Looking good, dude, by the way. Like looking fresh. Oh my gosh. Makes me absolutely feel like the scrub I am at the moment, and that's okay. Every now and then, you got to bring it, and you brought it. I admire it.
Why, thank you. You know, when you were born fabulous and you've stayed looking fabulous for the last, 8,000 years or so, you got to keep rocking it. All right. Well, we're basically just going to dive right in and get reading this set review. CovertGoBlue, are there any final little tidbits or morsels, any little appetizers, aperitifs, as we might say, before we jump right on in here?
Yes, tidbit number one. I did not add any cards to the list that we covered last week because rather than trying to do a full set review, you can kind of put them together and get our thoughts on all the cards in the set. I don't know if you added any after going over it, but for me, it was like there's already so many to talk about that. Yeah, for the complete comprehensive, just make sure you listen to last week's podcast. So that's
Yeah. Just a little view behind the curtains. CovertGoBlue prepares lists for these set reviews. He does a absolutely bang up job of that as well. And I did pick up what you were putting down, CGB. So I also did not add any of the old cards on here. And you know what? I got to say, man, some of those cards we read last time were some of the better cards in the set, in my opinion. So yeah, definitely crafties. If you didn't listen to that last episode, that would be definitely a good one to check out after this one for sure.
Absolutely. Then the other thing, I didn't run past you. I'm just going to spring it on you here.
Oh,
you ready?
Just throw it on out there, my friend.
I think I know what your answer is going to be.
Yeah.
In a long time ago, I would do crafting guides for sets where after talking about a card, I'd say whether or not you should craft and a guess of how many I would craft. For some reason, we've never done this on the Arena Craft podcast.
Sure. Well, I didn't want to move in on your space, man.
Well,
you know
I stopped doing it a little while ago just because I was frustrated that doing it on stream meant it was basically gone. Like I would go to find it and see what my numbers were from the last time I did this. It would be hard to find the VOD because Twitch, you only get like 30 days with your VOD. And I could push it to YouTube, but there's like weird stuff with the music and things like that. And Twitch VODs on YouTube and some contract I have with Twitch. And it's not worth talking about. But for some reason, like I stopped doing it a year ago. Why don't we give the crafting guide on the Arena Craft podcast?
You know, that sounds excellent. And crafties, if we don't throw out a number, then just assume that it's 0. Okay.
I'm going to try to remember to close up each one with how many are you going to craft? And you can say 0 or if you want to.
Yeah. Also for the commons and uncommons, we'll just assume that you'll craft, however many of them you feel like. And
fair.
It's probably not really worth mentioning.
Yep. Only the rares and the mythics. Yep.
All right. Excellent. Well, it sounds like that's that's with all of that out of the way, why don't we dive in here? So let's start off with a bang. And this set is all about the vamps. And so we're going to read through the vampires right here and get a sense of whether they are actually a going concern in standard now. So let's kick it off with Blood Vial Purveyor. This is 2 black creature vampire at rare. It is a 5/6 flying trample. All right, 5/6 flying trample for 4. Damn. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player creates a blood token. And whenever Blood Vial Purveyor attacks, it gets +1/+0 for each blood token defending player controls. So, I mean, I guess the only question, CGB, is how much of a downside is that going to be? Because this creature is terrifying.
Yeah, this, so far, at least on Twitch, has been one of the most controversial cards in the set. The pre-order price is at $9 for a rare, which is pretty high. Like, that's a lot of respect for a rare in pre-order price, a lot of enthusiasm about this. And some content creators, including myself, are on the record as saying that this is not a good card.
Yep. So. You know what? Okay. So basically, I feel like every couple of sets, they make one of these, right? It's like some undercosted black flying trampler. And I feel like invariably they end up being unplayable, right? And I feel, like looking at this one, honestly, this is the closest one I've seen yet to being like, could it get there? Could this be the card, right? Because it's not as bad as some of the other ones we've seen, like a Mind Rack Demon, for example, or Master of the Feast, right? These are cards that are like they reward your opponent pretty heavily, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this seems on the surface of it to be a much weaker upside for the opponent. But like, take us through why you still think this just isn't going to get there.
Yeah, I think a lot of the enthusiasm for this comes from Desecration Demon, a card that was a 4-mana 6/6 with what looked like a significant downside that ended up seeing significant play a long time ago. Magic has changed a lot, and this card is all about, does it actually stabilize a battlefield or does it actually get to attack? Because if it does neither of those things, you just provided another Dies to Doomblade target that also gives the opponent a toy. And it doesn't seem like much. A blood token doesn't sound like much at all because it's just a rummage, right? But that's kind of what Magic is. It's also, you could also take it as you give the opponent the ability to cycle like X many cards in their hand, depending how many spells they cast before they deal with this, gain cycling. And
yeah, actually, that's a good call.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough thing to hand your opponent and just give them that much utility. And I think that if this card is going to live and get to attack or stabilize a battlefield, it could be very good. So against red removal spells, it could be very good if the opponent's relying on that as their only removal. Against green fight spells, if their creatures are and remain small enough, this could stabilize a battlefield. But what if, just what if, Arjuna, your opponent untaps, casts like a dirtily spell, some kind of a card draw spell, and they get a free blood token. They cast a removal spell on your opponent's other creature, not even your Blood Vial Purveyor, and they get a blood token. And then they cast Fading Hope on your Blood Vial Purveyor, and they get another blood token. How do you feel about how that went?
It's not going to feel awesome, my man. And I think that's the cool thing about this card, right? Is that they designed a mechanic into the card that helps you deal with the card. Right.
That's true.
So even if your opponent plays this and you're like, oh crap, I have no way of dealing with that. Well, now you can just basically spend all of your available mana. I mean, if you have any cards whatsoever in hand, you can like kind of hustle to dig through your deck to find an answer. And I think that that's a really cool card design. And I also agree that it may very well make this card not playable. I could see it as a sideboard card. I kind of liked that red, playing against red scenario that you highlighted. This card could really frustrate particular decks. It definitely seems like, it's so interesting, right? Because it looks like a Goldspan Dragon blocker, but then the kind of deck that wants to play a Goldspan Dragon wants this thing in play all day, right?
I feel like this card is great against Temur Treasures, for example. And then it's turnaround. It's terrible against Izzet. Izzet Dragons just laughs at your attempts to play a 4-mana card and without haste or any ETB and have it beat you. You know, it's just not going to work. So if anything, it's a sideboard card to me.
Yep. Yeah, sideboard card, or, you know, part of a very particular plan, which has thought through all of these downsides and has a solution. But yeah, I agree. This card looks like don't craft any of them, crafties.
I am crafting a Stone Cold 0.
Okay, let's go on to the next card then. Falconrath, 4-bear, 2 and a black creature vampire at rare. It is a 3/1 flying. Falconrath 4-bear can't block, which is an ouch. Whenever Falconrath 4-bear deals combat damage to a player, create a blood token, and you can pay black and sacrifice 2 blood tokens to return Falconrath 4-bear from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, CovertGoBlue, you added this to our sheet. Explain to us what you think this card is going to be doing.
Well, I think that the fair use of this card is really bad. I don't think that there's a world where you want to pay 3 mana for a 3/1 flying can't block. I think that the Flaming Skull card, Flame Skull, right? That's what it's called.
Flame Skull.
I think that Nick Cage showed us that just doesn't cut it in standard anymore without haste. It just doesn't work. So the question with this card is, how much blood do you have? Because I think that if this card is 1 mana, sacrifice 2 blood, get a 3/1 flyer at instant speed, you have a real card. So there has to be enough blood in the format, in a playable deck, and the vampire deck might have it. There's a lot of blood production, more than I think I expected, and there's plenty of ETB blood, there's plenty of when something dies blood. So that's going to be the test. I think that this card is terrible if you just cast it. I think it's great if you sacrifice a blood token, you discard this, you draw a card, then all this done in the opponent's end step, you sacrifice 2 other blood tokens and you get a 3/1 flyer for nothing, maybe to follow up a board wipe. I think that's great.
So this card reads to me like a card that would have been a player back in like 2008 or something like that. And I'm not sure if it can keep up with today's Magic. I think obviously one of the things you love to do with this card is discard and or mill it and then just bring it back from the graveyard. I think especially like let's say you have a turn where like you mill a couple of these and just like sack 4 blood and just like all of a sudden you have 2 3/1 flyers ready to go and kill your opponent. Like you can have sequences that are super powerful, right?
Yeah.
And especially when paired with that other 2/1 for 2 flyer that craps out a bunch of blood. It could kind of get the job done in the air very quickly.
Crapping blood is a serious condition, guys.
that is a serious condition. Although I don't know, when you're a vampire, maybe it just means you had a little too much to drink last night. You know,
I mean, I've that's happened to me, and I'm not a vampire.
Okay. Well, definitely something to pay attention to. You know,
TMI,
don't let that
TMI,
condition go too long. Was that the night that you were climbing with Simic Ramp, or am I just conflating the events? Anyway, I seem to recall a story on the podcast. But getting back to the focus at hand, I totally agree. Just playing this on the face of it looks terrible. I think the fact that this cannot block a Spellbinder is kind of a drag, right?
I mean, not blocking is a drag. Always is.
Yeah, I mean, not blocking it is a drag in general, absolutely. But it's just kind of a shame because like one of the better decks in the format, which is also almost certainly going to be more aggressive than your deck, has like an excellent flyer that can just go around this, right? So I feel like that's kind of a shame. But interesting card, could get an incredible amount of value out of it. So yeah.
Yeah, the points I just want to make is, 1, anything that's good at coming back from the graveyard or better in your graveyard is better in this set than you think because of the blood tokens. So that's
good call.
Yeah, you're going to be able to discard things to your graveyard, replace them with cards way more than you're used to. And then the other thing is just like, this is for the vampire tribe. If you are it doesn't exist outside of a world of blood. You need a lot of blood. Like it needs an ocean of blood to work. And don't play it in just other decks, I don't think it's good enough for that. So if you are the vampire fan, I think that crafting 2 to 3 of this is part of what you're signing up for your deck, even though it may be a sideboard card in the long run. And I would probably start with 2 if you know you are diving on those vampires.
Yep. Totally agree. However, I'd craft the 2-1 before I'd craft this.
Full agreed.
If my rare cards were in short supply. Yep.
If you are diving on the vampires, the 2-1 flyer from last week, whose name is escaping me because I'm good at this, but I'm not good at it on week 1, man. I have to say the card name about 50 times to get it.
They're not helping you out, man, because like you go down the list of these cards and they're all called like blood sheath ear biter, you know, or like
it's
blood trail,
Falconrath, bloody something else. But
that's exactly it.
Blood bat something.
Reaver red flying tooth thing.
Throw in something about a wedding, and you've got names.
You're
but
good to go.
The name of the card is Voldaren Bloodcaster.
Okay. Yep. That's exactly it. You know, put a house name in there, put blood in there somewhere. You're good to go, right?
Yep. Talked about last week. 4 of those if you like vampires.
Okay. Gotta love it. All right. Next card here. Cemetery Gatekeeper, or cemetery, as we say in England.
Good Lord. No. We're not going here again.
1 in a red. This is why I'm a bad comedian, because I laugh at my own jokes. All right. 1 in a red. 2/1 creature vampire at mythic. It has first strike. When Cemetery Gatekeeper enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, Cemetery Gatekeeper deals 2 damage to that player. All right, so Harsh Mentor's back, CGB. What do you think about this card?
I think this card has a potential to be extremely, extremely, extremely good in older formats. And
that's actually a really good point. Yep.
I mean, with fetch lands, you either are exiling your own fetch land or your opponent's, and every land they play is 2 damage while this thing's alive. Like, that's insane. And that's why the pre-order price on this sucker is almost $30.
Yeah, it's also, you know, because the fetches are already damaging you, right? Mm-hmm. And like each fetch shock does you 3 damage, so then that bumps up to 5 damage. So
yeah, and the fetch land enters the battlefield, and then the land you fetch enters the battlefield. For each of that's 2 damage. You could take 7 damage for an untapped land, Arjuna.
But let's clarify this though, because it says whenever a player plays a land.
Yeah.
All right. So when you fetch, like, it's coming into play, does that count as a play? Because I thought the play was coming from the hand, right?
Really?
It's not. That was my assumption, but Judge. I don't know. Yeah. Good question. So tell us in the comments, crafties. I know there's some smart brainiac out there who's just itching, just jumping off the edge of that chair to tell us what's right. But yeah, in the very least, that's a really good point, CGB, which I had not considered with this card.
How about standard? What do you think for standard?
I'm having a hard time. All right. So first of all, it's just an awful lot of X1s in this set. I would definitely be bumping up the number of spike field hazards I was playing in my red decks for sure. It's kind of hard. I'm not really feeling this. I feel like this cycle in general, I'm not really feeling it. This is lined up to be a pretty feels bad mechanic, I think, and especially for cheap cards, right? So the cheaper a card is, the less likely your opponent is to have anything in their graveyard, especially anything you really want to hit. And also, I mean, the less likely you are to have a card in your graveyard too. So when you're curving out with this, it's probably just going to be a 2/1 first strike vamp, right? Like the first time that you play it.
I mean, if you're going to play it on 2.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, you know, this is Magic. You get 7 cards to look at, sometimes 6, sometimes 5 cards to look at. There's going to be plenty of times when this is your only 2-drop, right?
When you're aggressive, and especially when you're vampires and you need to get that damage in for that bloodthirst-like synergy that they've got going on with some of their cards. Yeah. An ability like First Strike is really good. So getting 2 power with First Strike is all right in the context of we need to be hitting our opponent so that our other cards are better. And I'm thinking of, the names. Vampire Socialite, right, is the one that buffs the team if you did damage to them this turn. And then there's Florian, cards like this. So in that context, we're doing okay. Now, remember what I said about blood. You can discard a land for 1 mana to your blood token on 3, and then play this, and then exile that land. And now whenever your opponent plays a land, they take 2 in standard. I mean, that's a good 3-drop for an aggressive vampire deck.
I think, honestly, the place where I see this card doing the most work is against a deck like mono white, for example, where like but vast majority of non-land cards in the deck are creatures, right?
Sure.
And so let's say, and you're also more likely to tangle with some small creature early, right? So let's say that you like make a, like for example, they're not going to want to swing in with that, 2/1 spirit to trade with your 1-drop, right? If you have a threat of slamming this the next turn, because then like every single creature you cast from then on is dealing you 2, right?
Yeah.
And that's a deck that's pretty regularly, especially from turn 4 onwards, looking to double spell every turn with just a bunch of creatures. So yeah, this could easily deal like 8 or 10 damage to your opponent just from them playing stuff out. And so for me, that's the most compelling scenario.
Yep. There's also the card that we talked about that's like the Lay of the Land with Cleave. It's that green like tutor card.
Yep.
Yeah. I am an embarrassment so far. I usually know this stuff.
It's called
Dig Up.
Gross.
It's called Dig Up.
That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like turn 1, you could play Dig Up sorcery, and turn 2, you could play this card, and that would put a real damper on some decks, some Epiphany decks, some sweepers cost an extra 2. It's a little thing, but it's a low cost. It's only 2 mana. So I think that if one of these cards works, this is one of 2, and we'll get to the other, that I think could make a splash.
Yeah, I definitely agree. This is one of the better looking ones in the cycle. I don't know. I'm really on the fence with this one, Crafties. I would say craft none of them to start and see if like some big brain person figures out a good shell for them.
I would also say craft none to start unless you know exactly what you're doing with this and plan to do it a lot. Like some people just love the idea of somehow getting a land in their graveyard and making the opponent pay 2 life for every land they play. And you know what? I don't hate them for it. I think that's do your thing. But you know who you are, and I can't stop you from crafting it. If you're if you're medium or not sure, don't craft.
Yeah. Hashtag goals. Final thing to note, if you manage to tag 2 of the, like if you play 2 of these in a game, which you very easily could, and you manage to tag the same card twice, then boom. I mean, that's not going to feel good, right? Like that might just lock you out of playing the rest of your creatures or whatever. not so good. That's something to think about. All right. Well, the main course, as it were, has arrived, or rather, shall I say, the groom. Edgar, Charmed Groom, 2 white, black, legendary creature vampire noble. At rare, 4/4. Other vampires you control get +1/+1. When Edgar, Charmed Groom dies, return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. At the beginning of the backside is, of course, called Edgar Margot. Why can't I speak right now? Maybe it's because I'm wearing like these sunglasses. I can't see jack.
Maybe it's because you mispronounced cemetery and you've like permanently ruined your brain. Yeah,
I am paying the iron price. Edgar Markov's coffin. Actually, that's just a hard phrase to say. Try to say that 5 times fast. It's hard. All right. It's a legendary artifact at rare, of course. And at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white and black vampire creature token with lifelink and put a bloodline counter on Edgar Markov's coffin. Then, if there are 3 or more bloodline counters on it, remove those counters and transform it. So apparently being this old makes you just slow as fuck. What do you think, CovertGoBlue?
Okay. So I think this card is actually kind of sweet. As far as a lord, it's resilient. When it dies, it comes back as an artifact that cranks out 1/1 creatures that have lifelink, so they block or tangle pretty effectively. And then when you get enough of them, this flips back over, it buffs those tokens, and you keep on attacking. So it's really good value. The thing that worries me about this card is it's a 4 mana 4/4, and there are a
Yep.
lot of bounce cards in the format. Like bounce. The two most played cards I saw in a recent event were Divide by Zero and Fading Hope.
Yep. No lies told.
Yeah, just and so like this card is terrible against those things. So if if the vampire deck or other aggro decks, such as some other cards we're going to get to, are so reliably good that they push those into more fringe playability and they have to play more hard removal spells or more sweepers, then this card becomes good again. Because this is very good in a world without bounce spells, because typical removal doesn't damage it too much. It does increase your battlefield presence immediately by pumping your other vampires, and it does deal a good amount of damage on itself. Like before or after a sweeper, you can put this down and not feel terrible about it. So that's why I think that this could be a good card, but in the format we currently have, it is not.
Yeah, hard agree. This is another one of those cards that looks like it would have been terrifying for control mages to play against like 10 years ago. But as it stands, it's just too slow, right? I mean, that's really the problem. Like, it's not that you're not getting a full card's value out of this thing. It's just like, at what cost, right? I also think another thing that challenges me about this card is that it is an Orzhov card, and I'm feeling this tension in this set, right? Because we have like a bunch of like Rakdos color vampires, and the whole Orzhov thing's kind of weird. So unless we're planning to go Mardu vampires, I don't know. You look like you have a thought on this.
A couple. First of all, from a lore perspective, Edgar is kind of House Orzhov and Olivia is House Rakdos. So we're uniting them through this wedding. We're
thematically
putting the bloodlines together. So that's why it is the way it is. Edgar is, of course, where all the vampires come from on Innistrad, and his classic kind of commander card is Mardu colors. So he's used to swinging all those ways. So there's the thematic stuff. As far as playing the card, I don't think 3 color is going to be a problem, especially in vampires. You get to play Voldaren Estate. You get all of the chill lands. You get all of the pathways to play on white when and where you want to. I've been playing a Bant human deck a little bit this week, actually having fun with it. The mana is great. And when you think about the vampires that we want to play, there's no double red and there's no double black for the most part. There's a lot of like, you just need one of each color. And it's actually, from playing Bant a lot this week, I'm confident the mana is going to be fine if you want this. Do you want this? I think that the vampire deck, I would craft 2 if I knew I was going to play vampires. If that was my jam for sure.
Interesting. I'm currently a 0 craft on this card, but I could stand corrected. This is the kind of card where, like, if it's the last card out of your hand, it could be a problem for your opponent. Certainly, if your opponent doesn't have an answer for it, it is going to be a problem. Even if they do find, like, a non-exiling and or I guess, like, so if it gets sacrificed, it still transforms, right? Because that's a die.
In fact, if the format shifts and you don't have to worry about bounce spells in every other matchup, you can go up to 4 of this, because it can legend rule itself to flip one of them and start making
that's pretty
1/1s.
cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Because, and then those 1/1s are immediately 2/2s, so that's nice.
It's pretty sweet.
So it's not a terrible card, but I'm just this is just reading as like too pricey, too slow to me. All right, cool. Next, a card that I put on here. Honestly, don't know if this card's going to be playable, but if it's not playable, it's not far off. Gift of Fangs, 1 black mana for an enchantment aura. And the enchanted creature gets +2/+2 as long as it's a vampire. Otherwise, it gets -2/-2. So one of the reasons I wanted to mention this card is just that Deadweight has variously seen play in standard formats, like even before Luris. Deadweight was getting thrown around to answer especially threats like cheap, indestructible white creatures, for example. So that's like a scenario in which I could see Gift of Fangs showing up. I love that it has a second mode if the first mode of killing your opponent's creature isn't live. So anyway, does all of that add up to make this a standard playable card? Who knows? But like I said, I don't think it's that far off if it's not. What do you think?
You added this one. I almost added it. I think it's a good role player card in the right format.
Yeah.
As it is right now with bounce spells, you don't want to be putting this on your own creatures in the control matchup, and there aren't cheap indestructible creatures that there were in past formats that required these kind of effects. So if the meta changes, this could be good. I think in the current meta, it's not going to show up, but it'll be here for a while.
Yeah. Well, another good thing to note is that this is much more live against a control deck than Deadweight is, right? So I still like it for that reason.
Oh, it exists. It'll get them a little.
Yeah, I think you'll see this card. Even if not at tier 1, I think it's going to show up on the ladder. Okay, Blood Tithe Harvester. Another card that I added to the list. I actually think this card's quite good. Black and red for a creature vampire at uncommon, so craft away. It's a 3/2. When Blood Tithe Harvester enters the battlefield, create a blood token, and you can tap and sacrifice Blood Tithe Harvester. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is twice the number of blood tokens you control. Activate only as a sorcery. So I think there's plenty of relevant text on this card. It's a 3/2 for 2, which I love. Overall, actually, I'm just pretty high on this card, and I expect it to go into any Rakdos playing Vamp deck. What do you think, CGB?
I think for aggro decks, I think it's a little worse than the keyword stats on the other 2-drops, First Strike and Flying, for example.
That's fair.
So I'm not as enthusiastic about it. I would love it. Like, I would have put it on the list 100% if I thought a mid-range kind of vampire deck could exist, because this is a beautiful mid-range card, especially if you have ways to get it back from the graveyard and abuse it. I'm thinking Silver Quill Command would be a lot of fun, right? Like, just being able to sacrifice this over and over and just kill multiple things, but also beat down when you want to beat down. I don't think mid-range vampires is a thing until the format shifts. So that's why I just don't think there will be slots for this in the 2-drop. I think that there's already 3 good 2-drops. That's 12 slots.
That's interesting. I rate this card, like, on day 1, I rate this card higher than the 2/1 First Strike Mythic. Maybe I'm just silly, but basically, if you play your cards right, you get a free card out of it, which I love. And it can also beat your opponent down, and it can also double as a removal spell. So I just think it's super versatile, right? Like, one of the things I like about this card is that I feel like it solves all of your problems. So if all you need is another beater, it does 3 to the face, which is great. If your opponent's creatures are a little chunkier, you can either block with that 3 power, or you can just freaking tap it and take them out. You don't need that many blood to get the -X pretty high. I don't know. I think it all adds up to this being a really good card.
I think the rate's good. Craft away. It's an uncommon. Try them out. See how it goes. I think you could definitely, if you're budget conscious, you can craft these and not the mythic, and you'll probably have comparable deck
Solid
stats early in the format. So do that if you want to.
Cool.
It plays really well with the mythic, though.
It does.
Because you can either sacrifice this and hit a creature, or you can, discard a land and use that play pattern we talked about.
Yeah, hard agree. Love it. It's a good way to get your first blood token, right? First, Okay, I'll pass this over to you. Why don't you read the zombies for us, CGB? Oh, I guess, okay, before we do that, let's check in, right? How are we feeling about Vamps as a deck?
I think there's enough here to get them dead quickly, and I think that that's what Vampires has to do. I would love for mid-range Vampires to be a playable thing, but right now I think it's Rakdos kill them fast, and I think that the 2-drops are particularly big upgrades, and that's what it's... I wish we had one more 1-drop, to be honest.
I agree.
I think that's what we missed.
What's the red 1-drop, the 2/1? What's that one called?
Pit Fighter.
I mean, that's a solid start, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. Like, solid 1-drops and 2-drops are the core of any good aggro strategy. And yeah, definitely got them here. I'm not seeing anything that makes me think like, oh, crap, like mono white or mono green is going to be in for a challenge, right? Like, I haven't seen anything like that yet. Maybe like it all comes together with the Steely Vampire, right? The 3-mana Stelia Vamp thing.
Oh yeah, I know
You know
what
what
you
I
mean.
mean? Maybe the curve looks really good or whatever, but
Is
like
it called Vengeful Vampire?
vengeful vampire, that sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah. So like maybe there's like a really solid curve in there, and there's like a few, I don't know what else you play in the deck, but maybe it all kind of comes together, right? But at the moment, it's not looking to me like it's going to topple any of the other aggro decks in the format from the throne.
That's honestly why I like the mythic one so much with the first strike, because if you play burn spells, you can attack with it and they actually have to make a decision about blocking because it can kind of punch up, so to speak. And there aren't many cards in the vampire deck that can do it.
Yep. No, that's a really good call. Cool. All right. Why don't you take us into zombies then?
All right. Zombies. It was the other tribe that we said didn't get there in Midnight Hunt, and that definitely played out for the most part, where the cards were pretty medium. So it really needed a boost in this set to be a real tribal deck. So let's see what we've got here. The first card we're going to talk about is called Cobbled Lancer. This is 1 blue for a 3/3. This is 1 blue for a 3/3, Arjuna. It is.
No problems with me yet.
It's a zombie horse, because why not? And as an additional cost to cast this spell, exile a creature card from your graveyard. It also has an ability, 3 and a blue, exile Cobbled Lancer from your graveyard to draw a card. What do you think of this card? This is an uncommon, by the way.
First, I want to read the absolutely savage flavor text on this card. It's, don't worry, everyone. I hear hoofbeats. The Gavany Riders are coming to save us. And this is spoken by Aiden Morland Villinger. So, sorry, Aiden, you've got another thought coming there. But anyway, yeah, this card definitely stood out to me. I feel like the power level is there. Unfortunately, this is one of those cards that I feel like might actually be better in like an older format, like Historic, or probably not good enough for Modern, but I wouldn't totally count it out.
So you're concerned about that cost, right? That exile creature.
Yeah, I just feel like this is the kind of card that plays like really well with Faithless Looting or something like that, right? But it doesn't play as well like in just a regular kind of standard lineup. So I feel like you need to have a pretty compelling way to consistently get stuff in the graveyard quickly.
All right.
And I think so if you can put together like the dream curve, then yeah, this card is super sick for sure.
So turn 1, you can do things along the lines of Eye Twitch, Shambling Ghast, things of that nature. Yeah. Turn 2, you can do things like Village Rites or Eaten Alive to get the creature into the graveyard and then have a 1 mana 3/3.
Dispute makes the mana for this, so that's cool.
Yep.
Right.
A blood token will also fill that graveyard, like we've been saying. Maybe makes it a little bit easier, although I don't know how much blood you're going to get playing zombies. Maybe it's not zombie tribal. Exactly. Maybe you just need a 1 mana 3/3.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. This card kind of changes the paradigm because you're not going to play it on turn 1. Getting it on turn 2 is solid, but I mean, is it that bad to do like other stuff and get this on turn 3? Remember, learn cards also, you can choose to loot instead of get a lesson. So there's ways to get stuff down there.
It's not terrible. And honestly, just like getting a free card from your graveyard eventually from this is not terrible either. So I mean, it's a powerful card. It's a powerful card. I feel like if you can put together a good narrative for like how you're consistently gonna get enough out of it, I totally agree. I think this card's sweet. I mean, I like Consider, right? Playing this in a deck with Consider.
Oh, sure.
Solid little thing to do.
If you can hit a creature, then money.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this card could be super impressive. It could even be like a part of a staple in the format. Dare I say it? I feel like this card, it's kind of like I can't forget. It's the Delver. It's kind of like Delver of Secrets, right? Well,
I believe in you, Arjuna. Delver,
it's like
yes.
Yeah, it's like Delver of Secrets. Like if you can kind of like put it together, then it's going to be awesome.
I also just want to say, while you're like people are trying to come up with clever ways to do this, it's naturally where our brain goes. Don't forget, if you just play a creature that doesn't absolutely suck, the opponent's probably going to kill it one way or another. Like creatures hit graveyards. True. They're made to die. Everything dies, as Dr. House would say.
Agreed. So yeah, not bad at all.
Then I will move it along to another 3/3 zombie. This one, terrible rate, costs 2 mana instead of 1. This is Graf Reaver. It is 1 and a black for a 3/3 zombie warrior. This one's a rare. And it says at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to you. So it has the downside as well. And it also has exploit. When this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. Now, when Graf Reaver exploits a creature, destroy target planeswalker. What do you think of this?
This card got my attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is one of the reasons that would pull you into a zombie deck, and we've been needing those, frankly. So yeah, this card hits like a house. When you're playing an aggressive deck, you don't care too much about that cumulative damage, right? Like, the idea is that your deck is supposed to be designed in a way to which that's not enough of a downside. So, yeah, I mean, a lot to like about this card. This reads as a super strong card to me.
I feel like I need to have at least a mini rant because when I said this was a good card, there was a lot of pushback in my chat. And it was not because a 2 mana 3/3 is good or bad in the format, which is, in my opinion, what you have to analyze, as well as whether or not there are planeswalkers worth targeting. Not many, in my opinion. But a lot of people were like, it deals 1 damage to you. It's bad. And I guess we haven't done this in a while, right? Zhuzam Jin is a long time ago. I think Herald of Torment, Spawn of Mayhem was a long time ago now. There's a generation of Magic players that didn't play Spawn of Mayhem.
Yep. Surrender Befreet, one of our favorite cards.
Bingo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when the rate is good on a creature and it's cheap enough, taking damage is okay because your opponent is taking more. And then they say, well, what about when the opponent is playing creatures and attacking you? I don't know if you've ever done it, but you can block with your creature. It doesn't have to sit there killing you. You can try to trade it off with your opponent's creatures. And as a 2 mana 3/3, it's hard for them to just run it over completely. So I think this card is really interesting. That exploit is surprising. The fact that you can sacrifice another creature or sacrifice itself to just bam, 2 mana, destroy target planeswalker. Remember when that didn't exist?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah, you just don't.
I do.
You don't 2 mana destroy target planeswalker very often.
No, especially not attached to a relevant aggressive creature. Yeah, I mean, just think about it. Like, you're gonna be terrified to just slam down your Ren in 7 if you think that your opponent could have any possibility of sacking just like some useless zombie to kill it with this thing, right? Yeah. And then all they have to do is just find any way to kill the tree folk. And there's still the problem is you're still going to feel behind in that exchange, right? Like, even if your opponent like Graf Reavers kills your planeswalker and then like has a removal spell for your tree folk, somehow you're going to feel like you lost out in that exchange.
Yep, and it's a creature, so any raised dead or any kind of blinking effect, you can try to trigger these things again. So it's this is a winner for the zombie tribe. One of their great hopes.
I'm high on this. I think that if you're in on an aggressive zombie deck, I feel like you have to mainline for these. That's
I'm probably going to try it in Blood Money, just straight up as a 4 of. Yeah, I'm probably crafting 4 right out of the gate. There is a chance the meta breaks and this isn't good because we've seen 2 mana 3/3s not work out, but not in black lately without significant downsides. Like, this is way better than Slaughter Specialist, who gives the opponent a 1/1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that card definitely didn't get there.
All right. Yeah. Gonna ride along to the next one. This is Headless Rider. This is 2 and a black, so 3 mana for a 3/1 zombie. And whenever the rider or another non-token zombie you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie. It doesn't have decay. It doesn't enter the battlefield tapped. It's just a 2/2 zombie.
Okay, CGB. First of all, I love that you get real zombies, so that's a thumbs up. But holy crap, is it going to be annoying having to deal with this from now on, right? Like, if any of those decayed cards are seeing regular play in the zombies deck, like, I don't know, one of the best ones, for example, that 2-drop 1/1 that makes us decayed every turn. It's just going to be super confusing, especially in paper, right?
Oh, you're talking about like the decayed zombies and the regular zombies
Yeah,
living
just
together.
just
I don't know.
living as
Just
one. It's
just
gonna
bring
be
some
really
different
annoying.
tokens, man. It's fine. It's fine. Just,
Dude, I swear, people are gonna lose over that little distinction. It's gonna suck. You're gonna think you can
it
block
makes
and you
you
can't.
angry. You already
You're gonna
feel
you're
their
gonna attack
pain.
with the wrong ones. Oh, it's gonna suck, dude.
Dude, quit with the empathy, Soren. What kind of a cheeseball are you looking out for humans this way? Soren does, by the way, look out for
Clearly,
humans
clearly,
in the
you
lore.
mortals aren't as cold-blooded and calculating as I am.
This card doesn't help solve the fading hope Spikefield hazard problem, as many, many, many
Nope.
cards in this set run right into those, but
Nope.
it's great in pretty much all other kinds of things. If Doomscar is your concern, this card is your friend. If creatures are just bouncing off each other, some are dying, some are living, this is your friend. If you're sacrificing your own shambling gas to deadly dispute, this is your friend for sure.
Yep. This is one of those not sure if it'll get there, but powerful potential cards. And honestly, if it weren't for Spike-Filled Hazard and Shambling Gas being in the format, I would be like pretty high on this card. But it does have a pretty big little butt problem there.
It micro booty is a problem. I'm still like, if you're a zombie player, I'm still crafting 4. I'm coming out swinging with this card. I think it's potentially, remember Midnight Reaper? I think that was great in Cat Oven because Cat Oven does what it does. This is a little better than Midnight Reaper in a beatdown deck because you get the bodies on the field.
Yeah, you also don't have that pernicious problem of your opponent just randomly lethaling you by like killing 7 of your creatures at once, right? Like, I can't remember how many times I've watched people like they're just like executing their game plan, they're throwing stuff on the board, they're feeling great, the opponent's dead next turn, and then the opponent just sweeps and they're like, whoops, I just took 14 damage off my stupid thing. So so this definitely solves that problem for sure.
And Meat Hook Massacre.
Yep. Potential. I would call this a 2 of craft myself, but you're right, this could end up just being a total banger and all the way up to 4 for sure.
If zombies is your jam, this is I think it's an essential card.
Nice.
All right, this is one that you added to the list. This is Skull Scab. It's a blue and a black for a 2/2 zombie at uncommon, so 2 mana 2/2. This has exploit, and whenever a creature you control exploits a non-token creature, create a 2/2 black zombie token. Why is this one on the list?
It's basically like the last card, just one cheaper, and it has a better butt. Moving on. No, I'm just kidding. So okay. You know what? If there's enough exploit going on, this card's going to be sick. If you get even one free zombo out of this, you're going to feel pretty good about it. This is a real zombie and not a fake decayed zombie. So, if you're playing a deck with like 4 of the, the exploit counterspell dude, then that's already a compelling reason to think about playing this. If you have other exploit cards, then heck yeah, this card gets even better. Honestly, I have not like gone down the list and cross-referenced to see just how much exploit there's going to be and just how much you're going to run. So there might just be not enough going on for this card.
Yeah. My take from like living in this spoiler for 24 hours is that it is not. If it said whenever you sacrifice a creature, I'd be in. Since it says whenever you exploit, I think it's too narrow to play a grizzly bear.
So one of the reasons I think this card is great is that this itself can make a 2/2 on the way in, right? So if you have any one drop, right, that like this is a perfect follow-up to like your eye twitch, or shambling gas.
That's true.
So on turn 2, you can just have 2 2/2s in play and whatever upside you got from sacking the thing, right? So remember, like the exploit is a trigger that goes on the stack after this ETBs. So its static ability will actually trigger from that.
I guess the only way I'm excited about 2 2/2 vanilla grizzly bears is if they come with an Asika's Chariot, to be honest.
Dude, this is like a Seeker's Chariot on turn 2. What's not to like?
Oh, obviously, yes, they're the same thing.
No, look. If you're on the draw and your opponent pulls this off on turn 2, which they can do very reliably, right? There's 8 very playable 1-drops that you can curve this into. Like if you're on the draw, man, you're staring down 2/2/2s on turn 2 that are going to be closely followed up by, whatever else is going on. I mean, let's imagine if you have this out, right? And then on turn 3, you play another one and you exploit one of those zombies. Like, oof, you get 2 more of these things, right?
It's not far off. I'm just
right.
We don't have Lord of the Accursed. This is like Lord of the Accursed away, like a zombie +1/+1 card away from being amazing to me. As it is right now, I'm worried it's gonna look at the opponent's pack leader, their 3/3 or their 4/4, and be sad.
Sure, no, that's fair. We do have that other blue-black buff your zombies creature, right?
+1/+0, no booty buff.
It's not as good. It's not as good. I mean, this is, this set's just looking like some assless chaps, man. I don't.
No booty in the set, baby.
Lot of assless chaps. Anyway, yeah, I'm not making a hard argument for this card, but I don't know. It again, if it's not working, it's not far off, in my opinion.
Why don't we ride out of the realm of the zombies? Indeed. I guess we'll quickly say, did they get there?
I'm not sure if they got there. They definitely got better.
I'm not sure if they got there either, but I'm more excited to try them now than I was before. Yeah,
I think you're going to see some actually compelling zombie decks on the ladder, and that will have plenty of opportunity to kill you. I'm not reading this as a tier 1 deck unless someone comes up with something genius, though.
Okay. We're gonna go check in on those werewolves because they didn't give up on the werewolf tribe. They gave us a few more printings, and some of them are pretty juicy. So let's see if we can salvage what was supposed to be the premier tribe of Innistrad and ended up just like, well, you're not Goldspan Dragon, so we don't need that. So the first one I've got is a 1-drop, which has been sorely missing. Kessig Wolf Rider is 1 red for a human knight with menace, and it has 2 and a red tap. Exile 3 cards from your graveyard to create a 3/2 wolf creature token. It's in the wolf section because it makes a wolf creature token. What do you think of this card? This little 1/2 for 1 menace.
So if you get 1 wolf out of it, you're really doing it. Excellent card. I just don't know, though. Here's the problem, right? These decks want to be aggressive. In aggressive decks, you want your 1-drops to hit hard. This card does not hit hard. Also, like, you do have to spend 3 mana and tap the thing to make the wolf. And so that's like a pretty reasonable tempo hit when you could be slamming, important like creatures that are actually really good that have haste and kill your opponent, stuff like that. So kind of hard for me to imagine this getting there. Especially like 3 cards doesn't seem like many, but it's quite a lot of cards. You have to have a fair amount of attrition to get there. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this card.
Yeah, when you're winning with an aggro deck, the cards aren't in your graveyard. They're on the freaking battlefield. That's the problem.
And here's the other thing, right? If your opponent has dealt with enough of your threats to like fill up that graveyard, like they're not going to be scared of your 3/2.
Correct.
I don't know.
I think that this card, I might, if I were to try it would probably be in mono red, quite frankly. So I can go burn your face, burn your face, burn your face, make a 3/2, and getting in the 1 point of damage through menace, like kind of hitting them 3 times, getting a lightning bolt out of this is worth something. But I don't think it actually makes the cut in like werewolves or makes that deck significantly better. I'm on a 0. I give it a 0.
Yeah. I think you make a good point. I would read this more as Grim Lavamancer than as Kessig Wolf Rider, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gonna craft it?
Yeah. Yeah, not for the Wolves deck. Maybe for a mono red burn deck. Okay. That could be a thing.
All right.
Yeah.
The next card I've got is another 1-drop. This one is a wolf. This is Ascendant Pack Leader. This is 1 green for a 2/1. That's 1 mana 2/1, people, and it's a wolf. And when it enters, it's a rare, by the way. When it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it, if you control a permanent with mana value 4 or greater, whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on Ascendant Pack Leader.
Ooh-wee.
Ooh.
This is on my list of best cards in the set. I think this card has a fair amount of wild Nacatl to it. The existence of a Seeker's Chariot and Ren and Seven, which are both cards you're incentivized to play in green decks, even mono green decks, means that this is going to come down and or get at least one counter in a game pretty frequently, I would say. And, the floor of just a 2-1 for one, perfectly serviceable in an aggro deck. I think that this is going to jump straight into mono green decks, and I think it's going to be good. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I agree with what you said. I think that mono green right now is incentivized to have an aggressive 1-drop. Jespera Sentinel doesn't cut it because it's not very aggressive. And the other cards are more powerful, and the mana boost from it just keeps you from attacking, which makes the deck less aggressive, not more. This on turn 1 probably can cut a turn off that clock, and they need it against the All Runs Epiphany decks, because the only real risk when you play mono green is that you're not fast enough before the opponent takes all of the turns. Otherwise, you have the best stuff at every spot in the curve. If this doesn't make the cut in mono green, it's only because they're fast enough without it and all their other cards are already so good. But I think that it will. I'm coming out of the gates blazing 4 copies crafted from my mono green. What I'm cutting is, I think that you can cut the 2, if you're talking about Paulo's list from Worlds, I think you can cut the Florahedrons, and I think you can cut 1 or 2 Sculpture of Winners, because I think that the Florahedron and Sculpture of Winner's job primarily was so that you didn't do nothing on turn 2. You need a critical mass of 2 drops because you had no 1-drops whatsoever. Now you have a 1-drop, and you can play this on turn 1, and then on turn 2, if you're doing something like putting an inscription on it or protecting it with a veil, it's not the end of the world. It bridges you to your turn 3 Troll or Mammoth. So that's where I would go with this card.
Think about how well it plays with the Ranger class on both sides, right? So Ranger class makes this more of a relevant creature by piling on another counter on it. It's just one of the things that can make your 1-drop able to get through in the mid or even the late game. The other thing is, if you've got an active Ranger class that's fully leveled up, this just comes right off the top of the deck. It's later in the game. You might instantly get a counter on it. Even if you don't, you only paid 1 mana for it. And now you've got another look at the top of your deck. I just think this card is going to play really, really well with a lot of the rest of the cards in the deck, and I'm high on this. I think this is like a top 5, if not top 5, top 10 card in the set.
Well said. All right, we're going to go to another green card. So there's this cycle of exile thingy from a graveyard, and now your stuff is better in some way. And we talked about the red one. We're not even going to talk about the blue one or the black one. We're not going to talk about the white one. Well, we will. We will talk about the white one. But I don't think it's very close that this one seems the most busted, because it's the green one.
I mean, what do we come to expect, CGB? Did you think it would be any different?
Anyway, Cemetery Prowler is 1 green, 3 mana for a wolf, of course. It's a 3/4 body, because why would it be a 2/3? It's got vigilance, because why wouldn't it have an ability? And whenever this card enters the battlefield...
You know what, CGB? Sorry to interrupt you. There's going to be a bug on Arena where, after you resolve this, it's going to have reach as well.
Sure.
It's just going to have the world's sneakiest reach on it. Sorry, go ahead.
So when it enters the battlefield or attacks, because we need more, exile a card from a graveyard. Now, unlike the red one, whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you're going to get more shots at this. And spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card type they share with cards exiled with Cemetery Prowler. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card type they share with cards exiled with Cemetery Prowler.
Yep.
What?
I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if this is going to replace other 3-drops in green, but this is a strong card, no doubt. If you're making all your creatures cheaper, that's a huge benefit. It's a little cringe with cards like Old Growth Troll, right? Because you won't get the reduction. You also won't get the reduction with the Werewolf Pack Leader. Yeah.
I don't think this... I think this is sideboard mono green at best, and not main deck mono green. This is something else, though.
Yeah. But a strong card. I'm not arguing with any of the rate or any of the text on the card by any means, for sure.
What do you think playing good old Simic ramp. I know you love Simic. I know you love Sultai. We already talked about Dig Up. You cast your Dig Up on turn 1. You hit it with a Cemetery Prowler. Your sorceries cost less. Your Epiphany costs less. Your Sweeper, maybe, if you got some Shadow's Verdict. I don't know. I guess this plays great with Crippling Fear, but I don't know what you're on there. Your Dig Up that is cleaved costs less. Does that sound pretty fun? Maybe. A little fun?
It all sounds fine. I don't think this goes into your ramp or Sultai list, though,
really?
Unfortunately.
You don't think this goes into any kind of a ramp deck? You just want the bonus to be kind of a little...
No, I don't. Cards like these are good in creature decks, right? Like, cards like these are good when you just, like, want to double spell on the next turn, It's like a fairly well-statted body, and, you kind of want to use it to just get a bunch of creatures out. That's the way I read this card. Because think about this. Like, what are your incentives in Sultai at the moment? Your incentives in Sultai are like Planeswalkers, Binding the Old Gods. Okay, here's a compelling case. I do think that if you're hitting your Dig Up with this, then the best thing to do is Storm the Festival at 5. That sounds good. That sounds
doesn't
pretty good
sound bad to me. Yeah,
that doesn't suck. It doesn't suck at all, man. Storm the Festival gets a lot better if it's cheaper. So
yeah, don't forget to Alrund's Epiphany. Think about it. Dig Up turn 1, Alrund's Epiphany Foretell turn 2, turn 3 Cemetery Prowler. Your Alrund's Epiphany is like 5 mana. So you just need to play your Chariot and run them over.
Not bad. And, I'm stuck on this, but one of the cool things about Storm the Festival is that you could hit another Cemetery Prowler off it. And I'll tell you what, man, like if you're like casting Storm the Festival, hitting another Prowler, and that Prowler's like exiling your opponent's freaking memory deluge or something, like they're not going to feel happy about that.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not bad. Not bad.
The Graveyard Hate's also sweet to sideboard for any green deck, I think. But
okay, here's the question, CovertGoBlue. Yeah. Which is the better Mythic Green 3-drop? This or Primal Adversary?
If you're asking me seriously, I think it's Cemetery Prowler.
I'm curious. I think that's a fun little head-to-head for sure.
Okay. I'm going to craft 2 of these because I think at worst it's 2 in a mono green sideboard, and I think it has a lot of upside.
I'm going to come in at 0 on this card, but I'm open to being pleasantly surprised.
The next card that we have that is also a werewolf is the Ill-Tempered Loner. This is 2 and a red, so 4 total mana for a 3/3. And whenever this hill giant, which is a human werewolf, enters the battlefield, nope, sorry, scratch that. It's daybound, so it does do that. But whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target. And it has 1 in a red for +2/+0 until the end of turn. You're laughing at me because I messed this card up badly.
Before we flip this over, I just want to say that this card now will forever be called Ill Giant by me.
Giant, nice. So Hill Giant for the boomers, look it up, is a 3/3 vanilla card that every 4 mana for 4 mana is specifically 2 red and 2 other.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's an old reference. It's like when we call things grizzly bears.
Oh, lordy.
So the backside is a 4/4. It has the same text about whenever it's dealt damage, it does that much to any target, and it still has the text of 1 in a red, +2/+0 until end of turn. It's a werewolf on the backside, no longer a human. This card, what do you think of Ill-Tempered Loner?
All right, so on the face of it, this card reads not good enough, but here's the thing. This card could easily be kind of actually pretty sweet, right? So one of the terrifying things is, let's say you're a mono green deck and you're swinging with like a 6-power creature or something like that. Like this, blocking with this thing could be a real problem for them, right? Let's say that you like block a 6-power thing, you pump this a couple of times, you trade in combat, and now you're also dealing 6 damage to something else. Yeah, that's going to suck for your opponent. Maybe that's Christmas Land, because this is, after all, when all's said and done, an Ill Giant. But yeah, that's a strong line of text, right? It's like at the very least you get to deal 3 damage to something, even if they remove this.
Yeah, it's a callback to Boros Reckoner, and if you never played with Boros Reckoner or watched footage with Boros Reckoner, it was in every kind of deck. Every kind. It was in
Mm-hmm.
aggro, control, mid-range. It was in the sideboard or main deck of every single deck, and it had a very tough casting cost of triple hybrid Boros. And yet, like these three and 4 color decks still played it, like everywhere, because it was just so hard to interact with on the battlefield through combat, or with a burn spell. Like Lightning Helix was in that format. You didn't really want to Lightning Helix it. You just, 3 damage just got pointed somewhere else. I don't know how this is going to fit into the current format, but I'm interested. It really depends. I think one cool interaction is this card with Blizzard Brawl, because Blizzard Brawl, with and against Blizzard
That's
Brawl.
nice.
Yeah, with and against Blizzard Brawl is nuts.
Oh, that's nasty.
If it's your Blizzard Brawl, Blizzard Brawl's indestructibility doesn't prevent the damage. And keep that in mind also when any other kind of effect that can give this indestructible. So you would brawl this.
It prevents the damage to the indestructible creature, but not to something else, right?
No, it doesn't prevent any damage. The damage is still dealt. So Blizzard Brawl from either side works. Like, okay.
No. Yeah, I see what you're talking about. When you're the person Blizzard Brawling, it doesn't prevent the damage.
Yes. So if I cast Blizzard Brawl and I control Ill-Tempered Loner and 3 snow permanents, it's going to get the +1/+0. It's going to fight something, probably kill it. And then it's going to take the damage of whatever it just fought, say it was a 4/4, and deal the 4 damage to something else, any other target.
Yeah, that is horrendously gross. Like, you just lost the game.
Yeah, it's pretty rude. Then the other thing is that if the opponent uses Blizzard Brawl, their creature will probably be indestructible. But if they fight this, you get to deal damage equal to how much got dealt to it to something else. So maybe like if they have 2 old growth trolls or a chariot and a troll and they fight one, then you get to kill the other, for example. Like that. So it's not a complete loss to Blizzard Brawl on the defense either.
Now, okay, if this thing flips and you have any kind of a board, it feels like it's going to be game over for the opponent, right? Like, they can't block. They can't really do anything. It's just super nasty, right? Because the backside says whenever a permanent you control is dealt damage, it deals that much damage.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, a permanent you control is
any
dealt damage.
Permanent.
So like this and like 3 other creatures and a burn down the house is 20 your face.
It's nasty, man. Like it's hard for me to imagine that not being lethal pretty much any way you look at it. So that all adds up to being a lot of power on a card, and pretty much the only downside is it's terribly statted.
Yeah, and flipping is hard. Like we've definitely we can't take night side as a given, even in like a werewolf deck. We've learned that, but this card is interesting.
The theory on this card is that the pump helps you get to the night side, right? But then, of course, like your opponent's heavily incentivized to block it. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but then maybe you kill 2 of their things. Yeah.
Not bad.
This card is neat. I'm probably not going to craft it at first until I can think of the right home, because I'm not sure about it. But I would be surprised if this goes for very long without being a major player in Standard. I think that you'll end up with 4 of this before rotation.
Yeah, that's a strong prediction. The more I think about it, the more I like it. And I agree. I've played some games against Boros Reckoner and Pioneer. And that card is, just like you said, a consistent overperformer.
Mind if I keep reading?
Go for it. However, CovertGoBlue, I'm going to remove these sunglasses. Oh, it was Arjuna all along. And I don't know, man. I felt like they were just getting in the way,
How do you don't, now you understand my pain?
I do.
Welcome to my world. The sacrifices I go through.
Still as cool as ever. So don't worry about it.
The next card I've got is Hopeful Initiate. This is 1 white for a human warlock with training. Whenever this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. This is 2 and a white. Remove 2 +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control to destroy target artifact or enchantment. The stats are 1/2. By the way, I've got this as the mono white section. So I've got 3 cards that I think actually make mono white even more tier 1 than it already is. And this is the first one, this 1 mana 1/2 trainer. So what do you think of this card?
I'm a little low on this card. I feel like it's not as good as some of the other 1-drop options.
Like,
although,
which ones? You got to back it up.
Yeah, admittedly, the only really good one is the Spirit, right?
Usher of the Fallen is the best because it's a 1 mana 2/1 with an upside. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see, what else are they playing? Is this better than the Exile dude? I actually don't know that this is better than the Exile dog, right?
Yeah,
I think I'm kind of
familiar.
I think I'm kind of still on the Exile dog.
Yeah. I watched enough Game at Worlds where the opponent drew like 2 Exile dogs and like a couple other cards that didn't exile things, and it was very sad. Like Exile dog plus Adeline is you just got 1/1s, man. It's not great.
Well, so let's be clear, like the main course of this is the top track text, right? The training. I think like, yeah, okay, like this can hit a chariot. That's cool, but it's at a pretty high cost, right?
I don't think you will use the 2 and a white hardly ever. It's a little backdoor ability that will come up very rarely, but
that's my read on it.
For example, an out to, if you play mono white and your opponent plays Redain on the backside, the shield, like you're in. That's not good, especially if it's a mirror and you both have battlefields. Like you're gonna lose probably.
Yeah.
This
just remember to pay for. Out. Just remember to pay for it.
No, actually, no. Shield doesn't protect itself. Yeah.
The shield doesn't protect itself.
Dude, it's so many ways to mess up against shield. I understand.
Oh my god, yeah, I never play right against that card. Holy crap.
So I do think it's mostly flavor text. It's a cute backdoor against artifacts and enchantments that's mostly flavor text. I think the chances of this being a 1 mana 2/3 are just good. And when you think about the way that Stonebinder's familiar grows, you have to exile something. So it ties you into playing a certain way, and the opponent can play in a way that doesn't give you things to exile with their Sun Gold Sentinel, or doesn't have a 1/1 on the battlefield for the portable hole, you know? But this card, if you play any 2-drop worth playing, Luminarch Aspirant, Sun Gold Sentinel, what's the other one? Thalia, which we're going to get to. As soon as this thing gets to attack, it attacks as a 2/3. The second time it attacks, it will attack as a 2/3. And then from there, if you're doing mono white things, it will probably keep going up. It will attack as a bigger and bigger creature as long as it's out there. So I think this is a better 1-drop than everything but the Usher. And it even plays well with the Usher.
So one of the things I don't like about cards like these is they suffer from like the no friends problem, right? So like you play this on 1, you play something else on 2, your opponent kills whatever you played on 2. Now it has no friends, and it's not good, right? This gives your opponent a lot of agency to make your creature really bad. And okay, it's a 1-drop, so it's not like the opportunity cost is that high. Maybe later on in the game you're getting a counter on this. Certainly plays well against things like Smoldering Egg, right? Any like 0 power blocker that you were hoping to slow your opponent down with, like this and another creature are just going to happily attack into that. So not the worst. Final thing to note is that the highest this is likely to get in a lot of scenarios is up to 3 power. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on it. Yeah, this is one where I have to see it.
All right, I'm on a craft 3 because it's not good in multiples. But that's where I am, and I think it replaces the dog. I think it's just straight up better.
Fair enough. Awesome.
By the way, that no friends problem, I think that's a very good description that I'll never understand. I just too cool. Don't know what you're talking about.
That hasn't been a CovertGoBlue problem for some years now.
Here's a card that's great with training. This is Fleeting Spirit, 1 and a white creature spirit. It's a 2 mana 3/1. It doesn't have flying, even though it's a spirit. Not all spirits do nowadays. I just always feel like I have to say it. All right, here come the fun parts. White, exile 3 cards from your graveyard. Fleeting Spirit gains first strike until end of turn. 3 cards is a lot. Probably flavor text. Not very impressive. More text. Discard a card. Open-ended, so you can do this as much and whenever you want to. Exile Fleeting Spirit. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Remember? Do you remember Seasoned Hollowblade?
Do you remember why Seasoned Hollowblade was better than this card?
I think that Seasoned Hollowblade brawls with other creature decks better than this card. I think this card is much better.
I see. It's because you're a control mage.
Yes, this card is much better against all variety of sweepers, including the ones that exile or give -X/-X, and all manner of bounce spells than Seasoned Hollowblade ever could be.
I feel like this is only good against control. Am I right about that?
It does give you a kind of an endless blocking thing, and the ability to gain the first strike in a long aggro versus aggro battle means it's not completely worthless in that spot, because you can like get your first strike damage dealt and then discard a card to exile this if you want to for some reason. So it can still be part of the gang block.
The threat of activation is good on this card because it does put your opponent in an incredibly difficult bind, right? Mm-hmm. So like they're like, well, if I point something at it, they'll just blink it out. But then if I just let this block go through, they can give it first strike, right? And then, so you're right, like the timing on it can be very, very difficult, and it can put your opponent in a bind for sure.
I also just kind of wonder about playing it in a mid-range tempo or control deck, because you can discard a card and exile and then sweep the board and it comes back. You can also exile those spells like those Fading Hopes that you cast from your graveyard to give it first strike to make it a good blocker. This card is probably really decent being very annoying, and for some reason I want to use that like discard thing with teaching the archaics to always get a draw 3 out of it.
I mean, I definitely think that you're going to have fun with this card, CovertGoBlue.
Not you? You're not down with this?
I still think this card is substantially worse than either the Hollowblade or the Adanto Vanguard. I think just the ability for both of those cards to be like to become indestructible in the middle of combat, just it like makes them so good, right? And the indestructible still plays around most of the sweepers and most of the removal. So I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like the scenarios in which this card is better are going to be more niche.
I think it's better against current, like, is it decks than Seasoned Hollowblade would be.
Why?
Mostly because of the bounce thing. You don't have to pay mana to recast it. You get to keep battlefield presence.
Okay, that's fair. It is better against Fading Hope, for sure. I don't know though, like if your opponent divides this by 0, that's kind of their loss, right? And then you can phase it out and they don't get the value of it.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like against Is It, it's like 2 mana, opponent takes 3 damage for the rest of the game unless they do something really medium.
No, I mean, see, here's the problem though. Like one of the reasons I hate this is just that their egg blocks it all day, right? So
kill it. Just kill the egg. What are you doing? Or put a +1/+1 counter on this with Luminarch Aspirant,
it gets better with the Aspirant for sure. Yeah. I'm not a buyer on this card. I'll have to be convinced.
Okay, we'll see. The next card I've got should be pretty simple. I don't remember if we did talk about this the week before.
We did talk about it, but one of the best and most badass cards in the set. This might be my number 1 in the set, honestly.
Thalia's messed up, man. I have had like all week I've been playing. I was talking about a Bant Human deck I've been playing. I've been playing various like white plus this, trying to tempo out Is It, because for some reason there's a blue deck that I hate, and it's probably because it has red in it, if I'm putting my finger on it. But like killing Is It has become my thing now, and I just keep thinking if this card were a Thalia, like all the time this last week, and I'm like, this is going to be really, really good.
She's so good. Crafties, Thalia is a really good Magic card.
Craft 3 really or Craft 4? What do you think?
That is a great question. I'm probably in on the 4. Know, I think one of the questions you have to ask yourself is: are you playing best of 1 or best of 3? Right. So I think if you're best of 1 only mage, then you probably just top out at 3. I think it's so good against Is It decks that I would want 4 in my board.
Understandable. Yeah, mono white really pushes mono white, I think, makes it so good. hits like taxing the chariot is a big deal.
It's such a big deal, man.
We keep on talking about this with Is It, but how about also just taxing dragon's fire? So when they play Goldspan and attack with it, they can't just sack that treasure they made and kill something. Like it costs another mana.
The first time you're a mono green player on the draw and you cannot play Ranger class on 2, like you're basically losing the game on the spot. You know what I mean?
Blizzard Brawl being 2 mana is a big deal. Like that is more awkward. Like everything's more awkward.
It's just awful.
I think this card is absolutely sweet.
This card's messed up, man.
Now, I'm throwing it to you. This
okay.
next.
All right.
You created a category for this card. Go.
Okay. In mono blue, we have 1 card. Thirst for Discovery. 2 and a blue. Instant at uncommon. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a basic land card. The only thing I want to say about this card is that it's only playable in mono blue.
You're done?
That's it.
Okay.
Do you agree? Disagree?
I think you can play it in other decks if discarding, like you want stuff in your graveyard.
Yeah, if you're actively trying to discard.
Reanimator is a good example, but there's all kinds of other things you can do with the graveyard now because of the cycle of exile this from a graveyard and things of similar type do Y. But I think this is too slow for standard.
Well, one of the things I wanted to point out, maybe we don't live here anymore, but I feel like all of the previous Thirsts have seen pretty consistent play in their formats, right?
In their standard formats, it's I don't know about Thirst for Meaning.
Didn't Paulo win the world championship playing that card?
That deck was dead a week later. Like it was impossible to play for the rest of the format.
Fair enough, but who's going to argue with that result, right?
I guess when you're the world champ, if there's a card in your deck, it's one of the best cards ever printed and a staple of the format no matter what.
I mean, he won the freaking tournament, man.
You know what? I love blue. You know I love blue.
CGB. He had more copies of that card in his deck than he had copies of Dream Trawler in his deck. Think about that for a moment.
That was just correct.
That's what I'm saying.
I always said Dream Trawler wasn't as good as people made it out to be. I always said that.
Anyway, I don't know. Like, I think this card shows up, but the basic land stipulation is a heavy one, right? So you just I think it's got to be mono blue.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this card works out. I'm very skeptical.
Gonna be bonkers and limited, by the way. Great card and limited.
Yep.
All right. I will keep us going then here. We are on to our generic threats category. So these are cards that aren't necessarily going to go into any particular deck, but they're just kind of mostly creatures and or just other cards that have the potential to kill you. So let's start off with the next in this mythic cycle. Symmetry Protector. 2 white creature. I'm not looking at you. Creature, human soldier at mythic. It's a 3/4 with flash. And when Symmetry Protector enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, create a 1/1 white human creature token. So is this another one of these 4-cost flash white creatures that you're going to try to convince me is playable, CovertGoBlue?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm listening.
I'm not naive enough to think I can flash in a 3/4 and do anything relevant with the body anymore. I honestly, I'm over that. I've grown out of that. But the ability to make the 1/1s is really good. Sedgemoor Witch kind of proved that you can do a lot making 1/1s in this format because it's actually become a very important card in the last few weeks of the format. I don't know if you've been dialed into the
I've been watching that card do things.
It's actually become a big hitter because it can close out and end a game. And this gives you kind of a Sedgemoor Witch in white that you can play with counter magic at flash speed. And when you exile a type like instant, and then you play a bunch of other instants, or you just exile land so that every time you play a land, you get a creature, it can help you stabilize against aggressive decks and produce a clock against Is It Epiphany. And it is crucial. I can't tell you how crucial it is to have some kind of a flash threat against them, because if you tap mana on your turn, when you're in the standoff of they have Galvanic Iteration and Epiphany, and they're just waiting to have more Iteration Epiphany than you have mana, if you tap mana on your turn for frickin' anything, I don't know how many times somebody's just foretold something, and I'm like, oh, count it up. Now I have more Galvanic Iteration and Epiphany than they have counter spells, and they just lose. So creating a clock at instant speed, I think, is crucial. This actually gives me something to put in my blue-white deck that can shift that matchup, because if people play it right, I never beat Izzet. It doesn't matter how many Test of Talents you have. It doesn't matter what you do. They can tap mana on their turn and get cards, and you can never tap mana on your turn. So this breaks the symmetry. That's why I think it's important.
I mean, how good is it really against Izzet decks, though? Like, it doesn't block either of the dragons. Okay, it exiles a card from their yard, so that's a hitter, right? They probably don't care about the 1/1s, especially if you're not playing an aggressive deck. This just has an awful lot of dies to Dragonfire, if I'm really honest about it.
I like Witch. So I've played a lot of the Sedgemoor Witch decks. Witch finds a way to close the game, especially paired with Fading Hope. Like, you just bounce it and play it again.
Witch is a 3/2 menace, though. Like, and it's
on an empty battlefield, it doesn't matter, and that's what Izzet offers.
I mean, yeah, that's fair enough, but like, it comes down on 3. Like, I don't know, man. Like,
it comes down on 4 with Fading Hope open. This comes down on 4, and you don't have to have Hope open if they did something else, or they just don't have good removal.
Yeah, I'm not. Let me just say I'm not feeling optimistic about it.
All right, I'm crafting 2. I'm going to win games. You're going to respect it before it's over.
Okay. Yeah. Part of this is just that your credibility on this archetype of card is shot with me. So I'm going to have to see it before I believe it.
Dude, have you watched Untapped.gg? Azori, like, my gamers are out there with Azorius control and best of 1, and they are winning. They are winning.
I don't deny it, but that's because you're playing good cards.
Cards you didn't like. Oh, never mind. We won't go there. Let's talk about the next one.
Okay, this card is, I don't care what anyone says about this card. It's just freaking sweet, man. Concealing Curtains. I put this on the list.
No, that's not what I had next on the list.
Oh, did I skip one? Oh, yeah. I did.
Oh my God, I thought you were talking about this card. I was like,
my bad. Okay, hold on.
I was ready to go, baby.
I'll read this next one first, and then we'll come back to it. All right, don't let me forget. All right. Concealing Curtains. I almost thought that you hadn't put this on, so I put it on, and then I discovered you had, and then I was like, good job, CGB. So, Concealing Curtains, 1 black mana for a creature wall at rare. It is a 0/4. So yes, it has Defender. It also has this ability, 2 and a black at instant speed. And not tapping, transform Concealing Curtains. Oh, wait, activate only as a sorcery. Well, wah, 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 wah. But on the backside, it becomes Revealing Eye. It is a creature eye horror. It has menace. It's a 3/4. And when this creature transforms into Revealing Eye, target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do that, player discards that card, then draws a card. I just think that this is a super sweet card design, and I'm going to try to Shanghai it into my decks, whether or not it's good.
I'm surprised that the Concealing Curtains are a wall, but not an artifact. I don't know. But, you know, I guess they're alive. They're a living thing. This card does both things, right? You play it on turn 1, and you can block aggro until the right time to flip it, and maybe it does hit a non-land card, so it can hit creatures, so it's not as dead against aggro as your typical duress, go blank, or what, you know, Test of Talents. Like, all those cards are things that would be great against Epiphany or dead against aggro. This doesn't have that problem. It can it can play whatever role you need it to play. It is kind of that it's activate as a sorcery, because you put it on the stack, and if they do anything to it in response, it feels really bad.
Yeah, it does feel bad for sure. But I mean, I feel like this card, it plays so nicely in current matchups. So, like, for example, Let's say you're playing against mono green on turn 3. You can flip this thing around in anticipation of them casting their chariot the next turn. You can spike that card. If you do spike that card, you don't really care that they get to draw something else because it's probably not going to be another chariot.
It will be.
Okay, fair enough. Called me out. Me out.
Shuffler's fine.
Right. But I mean, this is what happens like in more controlling decks. You have like a small list of cards that you're consistently terrified about.
Yep.
And this card just really gets under those. And it's just really sweet because like in an aggro matchup, it's a blocker until you flip it. And then it's an even better blocker. And in a control matchup, it's both a threat and getting whatever card you didn't want your opponent to have out of their hand. So I don't know if all of this adds up to being a standard playable card, but I think the design is sweet and I think it could end up being better than it looks.
I'm going to try it in my black decks. I think I'm going to craft 2 to start with and see where it goes. I think at the worst, it'll be a sideboard card throughout the format. I think it's got a really high ceiling. I wouldn't be surprised if there's 4 of this in decks during its time in standard.
Yeah. Plus the flavor is just so sweet. A plus. I love the card. Okay. The card I skipped over.
Hold on. The card that Arjuna loves, that he's so excited is on this list. The card that Arjuna believes is going to break the format. Let's go.
I'm a play Q champion, CovertGoBlue. What can I say? Voice of the Blessed, which I'd like to think I have. White for a creature spirit cleric. It's in rare. It's a 2/2. Not flying, by the way. Not flying yet.
Oh, God.
Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Voice of the Blessed. As long as Voice of the Blessed has 4 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has flying and vigilance. As long as Voice of the Blessed has 10 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has indestructible. Why that matters? It's like, well, aren't they already dead? But whatever. Yeah, play Q special here.
What do you think? Like the most crafted card in the set by a mile.
It's going to be the most play QE card that ever play Q the play Q.
Frickin' nerds who love their life gain. These filthy casuals who just can't stop playing life gain decks. Here's the thing. I think life gain has a shot. I like this card
it's not terrible.
It's a better Pride Mate. It's a really
this is one of the best versions of this card I've ever seen. The only downside is that it pretty much has to be mono white. And unfortunately, we lost Heliod and some of the other cards that made mono white life gain really cooking in the last format. So whether we have enough in mono white to kind of fill this out.
I mean, it's a cleric, so you can go the route of like cleric tribal and play like the Pyre of Heroes. But I do agree with the mono white. I mean, I think it's a mistake if you're playing an aggressive deck not to play Faceless Haven and 20 Snowlands until they take it away from you. And
plus like every turn that goes by that you don't cast it, it gets a lot worse, right? Like you really want to be able to curb this thing.
Oh yeah, this thing's got to come down on 2 and just start growing. But I can't tell you, like, the reason I actually respect this card a lot, and I think it's going to make life gain arguably good. I can't tell you how many times playing against a Johnny's Pride Mate, the way I won is like all their other cards kind of suck, and I just need to like chump block this Pride Mate a few times and attack through the air or buy time to draw what I need to sweep the board. And this thing it just flies, and vigilance. Like you can't.
Nasty.
It's already hard to race a life gain deck. Now you just can't. Their biggest creature doesn't tap to attack, and it keeps getting bigger. Arjuna, how do you beat it?
You're gonna lose to this card, Crafties. Like you're gonna hate this card.
Yeah,
it's that perfect Venn diagram that everyone hates in Magic of like bad, and I lose to it a lot, right?
Yeah, you can't. You have to remove it. And sometimes you don't draw removal. And it's a 2-drop, so it's a low opportunity cost card. So if you remove it, it's like whatever. Not the end of the world. Plenty more cheap cards where that came from. Probably more expensive cards. Also, don't forget there's that angel that nobody's playing right now that gets back 2 creatures from the graveyard that have mana value 2 or less.
Yeah, don't remind them, CovertGoBlue.
Okay. If you have like the little Soul Warden out, that's like, 3 life gain triggers right there.
So hold on. So we have that Soul Warden at 1 mana, right? With Disturb.
Yep.
What else do we have? that really turns on the life gain deck.
Righteous Valkyrie is the best life gain card. Has been holding that mantle for a while. Whenever a cleric enters the battlefield or an angel, gain life equal to its toughness, +2/+2 to all creatures when you have 27 or more.
That card's a little slow, but
it's a dangerous card though, and this is a cleric.
It's good.
And that's why I think that cleric tribal's a thing. What about Book of Exalted Deeds?
I was thinking about that. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I mean, great payoff, right? But I'm just trying to figure out how are we getting enough life? That's the problem I'm having. We don't have Shadow Spear. We don't have a lot of the best life gaining. We don't even have a Daxos, right? So how are we consistently getting enough life to proc these things?
There are some other cards. I didn't put them on the list because in much the way that many things work, other cards other cards in life gain decks are unplayable everywhere else. But for example, Sanctify says as a sorcery, destroy target artifact or enchantment, gain 3 life. More of a sideboard card for sure. But I mean, there's life tacked onto a bunch of little things. Lantern Flare is 1 and a white, deal X damage to target creature or planeswalker and gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control.
So, I mean, that's one of the issues with this card, right? Is that you ideally want to play it with that green-white creature. What's that one called? The one that's Prosperous
Innkeeper? No, you're talking about, oh gosh. I'm going to get in trouble. It starts with a T. Is it?
I don't remember. I want to say Catilda, but it's not Catilda.
No, it's not
But
Catilda.
Anyway, but you'll know what I'm talking about. It's Scries and yada, yada, and whatever, right? So you want to kind of play it in those style of decks, and I feel like you can't really.
I think it would be a mistake.
I think gonna play fairly well with environmental sciences, though. I don't know. I don't know, man. No, that's the issue for me, right? The life gain is the issue for me.
I think there's got to be a solid mono white build that gets there. Cleric class, and the Soul Warden on 1, and just go from there. You'll find it.
Here's the thing. Even if we don't have the full package yet, we're going to get it at some point in this standard. So I expect to see this card absolutely everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Another card I can't confidently say that about, but maybe. Chandra Dressed to Kill, 1 red, legendary planeswalker Chandra at Mythic. I don't know, man. Does she look particularly better dressed than she usually looks? She looks like a little less like I just fixed a car Chandra and a little more like I just went to a dressmaker Chandra, but I don't know. I wish I could see a little bit more of her fabulous outfit here. But anyway, all right. So she comes in with 3 loyalty. She's a 3-drop. +1, add red. Chandra Dressed to Kill deals 1 damage to up to 1 target player or planeswalker. Another +1, exile the top card of your library. If it's red, you may cast it this turn. And -7, exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may cast red spells from among them this turn. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a red spell, this emblem deals X damage to any target where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. Okay, so the next in a long line of Chandra Planeswalkers, I'm just going to hand this one right over to you, CGB. What are you thinking about this card?
It says Chandra Dressed to Kill, and it doesn't kill anything.
It's kind of a tell, right?
By the way, also, while you were reading that, I looked through all the red cards and gold cards from Innistrad Midnight Hunt basic arts to see if there was another card that just had a better look at Chandra. Couldn't find one. Not a single one.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Wow.
What?
That's surprising.
I know.
Shouldn't we have 7 versions of this?
No, there is the other art version of this card. I was looking for a different card that had Chandra in it, and it would be like,
so we
could burns down the
kind of get a look of
something.
Exactly. There should be some burn spell with her, just demolishing some zombie, right?
Well, it was a quick look, but I didn't find one. So I can't help you out with a better look at the dress.
Yeah.
Going from 3 to 5 using the +1 is nice. It can play a gold span, I guess, but there are other ways to get there. The +1, the fact that the +1 only works if it's red really kind of ties you into either a heavily red Izzet deck or mono red.
It has to be mono red, right?
Maybe
because the other +1,
I don't know.
But both of these plus abilities only benefit you if you're mono red, right?
So I think that this card is like probably exclusively good as a sideboard card in mono red, because I think if you are on the draw and you play this on turn 3 and your opponent has an old growth troll, you did nothing.
Yeah. If this added red or blue, we'd be talking, right? But nah, just the red. It's kind of a beat.
Yeah. So I'm really low on this card. I think that if there is an aggressive red deck that ever makes a comeback, it will probably want to play this in the sideboard, because I think it's very good against control
for slower matchups.
Oh yeah, it's good against control, and it's good on the play against like a mid-rangey thing, to diversify your threats.
Yeah,
I don't see it in current standard in best of one anywhere.
So let's compare this to the other 3-mana Chandra, which was sometimes good in aggressive decks, right? That was the Chandra which made 2 elementals that had haste and you sacked them, and it could also recast an instant or sorcery from the graveyard, right? That was the kind of card that was really designed to get the game over with and had various synergies in creature decks. This is not that card. So, I'm unimpressed with this card as well. It's a 3-mana walker. You've always got to respect them. It can definitely do stuff. It can definitely generate card advantage. I feel like you need compelling things to do with 1 red mana if you're going to play this card. Like, I think that the 1 red mana burn spells, of which there's at least 1,
Frostbite
in this set,
and Play with Fire are probably the best.
There's another one as well. They printed another one that we'll get to lately. Flame Blessed Bolt. That's the one. So like those kind of cards need to be good. I suppose if you're playing a mono red deck, why not make it a snow deck? So if you can play like 4 Frostbites and you're consistently casting those off Chandra, not the worst. But I'm not seeing it at the moment, especially just against like what's happening in the format, like the kind of creatures you want to kill. Old Growth Troll's a great example. It's just like a complete murderer against this card. Good
job. You exiled the top card of your library. You get a random red card, assuming you didn't hit a mountain. You can cast it this turn. Your opponent played a Sika's Chariot. How do you think your next turn is going to feel after you cast your like 1 mana red card? It sounds terrible to me.
Have fun with that. Yeah. All right. Next card. Don't craft any of these. You know what this is, CGB? This is the frickin' mythic that you're tiltingly going to end up with 4 copies of before you've gotten any of the mythics that you actually wanted, and you'll never be able to play it in any deck.
Whale problems. Don't care.
Yep.
I've got infinite wild cards always. No feelings, no empathy.
Okay, let's move on to a creature that definitely doesn't have any empathy. Hullbreaker Horror, 5 blue creature, Kraken Horror. At rare, it's a 7/8. This is basically a flipped thing in the ice. It has flash. The spell can't be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, choose up to 1. Either you can return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, which is a funky but cool ability, or you can return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So CovertGoBlue, you seem to think that this creature was relevant enough to put on this list. Let's explore why.
Really? Dude, are we going to go to war over this one?
Oh, I'm not picking a big fight about it, but like this doesn't immediately strike me as the world's most playable Magic card.
I think that there's a British and American difference in how we look at this card. And I think that it's perfectly illustrated.
What are you talking about?
It's perfectly illustrated when you look at the pricing on Scryfall, because if you look, it says at TCG Player in America, it's $12.70. And on Card Market in Europe, it's
€150. Well, one half of this equation has it right, CovertGoBlue.
I'm down for some arbitrage.
Maybe the exchange rate's just good. I don't know.
No,
I will note
arbitrage this baby. We're going.
I will note that the English never cared about euros, and they care about euros less than they ever did right now.
Yeah, not getting into that. Don't know what's y'all can Brexit all over. I don't know. But okay, the card.
Yeah.
We talked about the flash threat in the Izzet battle, right?
You're playing this against Izzet?
Yeah, with the 2 white. Yeah. I think that this is. I think the most obvious place for this is in an Is It deck in the mirror, because right now the Is It mirror is the dumbest thing to ever happen in the history of Magic the Gathering.
I've never played it, but I believe it.
It's so stupid. Both players just do nothing but dirtle card draw, and they don't. And the first person to like get up enough mana from a windfall that they copied goes off first, because they just out mana the opponent eventually after each player does actual nothing for like 12 turns. It's disgusting, and there's no real breaker for it. Like there's nothing you can do.
Isn't Hall of Storm Giants kind of what you use to try to win that matchup?
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Arjuna. Power up at sorcery speed. You're 7/7 and attack for 7. You are going to lose the next turn. You're never going to untap again.
I mean, if you tap like 7 mana for this thing and try to get it like, to stick, like how's that going to work? This has flash. I know it has flash. I mean, you're playing it on your opponent's turn, but like they can put it back in your hand for 1 mana.
Yeah, then do it again. And again.
Sure, right? But like, I don't know. I feel like divide by 0 and,
go ahead.
And fading hope, like, nah, dude. I feel like we can't be doing this.
This is great against those things. They have to keep dealing with it, and if it sticks on the battlefield for any amount of time, it's going to shut down so much of their stuff. Like, I mean, if you're in the treasure standoff where you're trying to out treasure them, any spell you bounce their treasures, you just kind of like give them those little stone rains. It's totally fine if they want to keep bouncing this. Plus, I think that this is coming out of the sideboard, to be honest. So how many of Fading Hopes do you keep in the mirror? And do you keep it in for this? It doesn't solve it.
But I mean, I feel like people are bringing in some number of eggs and or dragons for the mirror, right?
So what?
I mean, well, what I'm saying is that Fading Hope is still good against those cards.
It's okay. I think this is the better breaker for the situation. You haven't played it, right?
I haven't played the mirror. No.
Okay. You tap mana on your turn, you lose, unless you're going off. That's the way it works. From about turn 6 through so on, any mana you tap to foretell or whatever, you're going to lose the mana war on their turn, because at any point they could go windfall, treasure, epiphany, you lose. Game's over. And it's just like a staring match to see who can do that first. The person who misses a land drop is dead.
I feel like you tap your 7 mana for this, and then they play that windfall, right? Or they divide it by 0, and now they still have mana to play that windfall.
But it's
right?
their end step, and if you untap with this, if they don't do something about it right away, you just nuke their treasures. Or if you have mana in addition to this, you nuke their treasures. You can nuke their windfall if they try to put it on the stack on your end step. If you ever untap with this, you will now control the game. Like everything will be on your terms. So they have to, at instant speed, keep bouncing it. And then you untap. So you didn't risk anything. You're in the same position, but they're down another card. And you just do this again and again until you win, or you go off and do the epiphany thing, because they have to spend mana on their turn to do the things you're talking about. To divide, they have to spend 3 mana on their turn. Okay, they're down 3 mana. Now I can win the Galvanic Iteration Epiphany War. Boom, boom, boom. It forces them to deal on their turn.
Nothing you're saying is super wrong to me. I'm comparing this card to the Serpent, Lockmare Serpent, right? I think people thought that was going to be a big breaker in control mirrors.
This is 10 times better. The abilities are 10 times better than that card. That card could be countered. That card was hard to get back from the graveyard. It didn't do anything really relevant on the battlefield other than attack and block. It
drew you cards.
No, that by sacrificing land. Worst thing you could put on the card for a control deck. Terrible. And that card, we still tried to make it work. All you need are other spells with this thing, and you control everything. You bounce anything, including itself, if you want to save it from any kind of removal, and you bounce spells on the stack. Everything's a divide by 0 plus.
I mean, I agree. Once this thing actually sticks, it's terrifying. So I definitely don't argue with you on that. I'm just curious about the wisdom of playing a 7 mana creature in the format,
Okay, so let me throw this at you. I think that this is the best like the best pile of cardboard that we've had in a long time that's worth cheating into play as a creature since Agent of Treachery.
That's interesting. I mean, okay, so one of the problems with this is it just dies hard to Doomblade, right?
No. So just play any spell and it bounces itself.
Yeah, but now you're talking about even more mana, right? And I'm having a hard time with it. This is one where, like, you know, you're good at Magic. I trust you. You're probably better at Magic than I am, but I'm still just going to need to see it before I believe it.
Okay.
So that's where we'll leave this one, Crafties. Leave comments and tell us, are you yay on Hullbreaker Horror or nay on it? I'm going to take the under on this card. CGB is clearly taking the over. Let's make this one of our bets for this set.
Craft 2. You won't regret it. You're going to win games.
I'm a solid Craft 0 on this thing. Another one that I'm pretty solidly Craft 0 on is the next card. Jacob Hawken, Inspector, 1 and a blue. Legendary creature human advisor at Mythic. This is a 0/2. You can tap it to draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may pay 4 blue. If you do, transform Jacob Hawken Inspector, and it turns into a legendary enchantment called Hawken's Insight. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile a top card of your library face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell from among the cards exiled with this permanent without paying its mana cost. So, CovertGoBlue, you put this on the list. I'm all ears for hearing about how this card's going to pan out.
Yeah, first of all, when was it an enchantment just to have some insight? Like what the hell is up with it being an enchantment?
I agree. It's kind of weird, right? Shouldn't it be an artifact? I don't know.
It should be like Hawkins' mystical insight or something. But no, just I have insight. Are you enchanted? It's magic to have a brain now. I'm like, what? I
agree. This card is super weird.
So I was really negative on this card when I saw it. And I thought basically 2 mana O2 does nothing. The longer I thought about it, I don't know. It's a really low opportunity cost. So anytime it's a 2-drop, you're like, well, I mean, look at what happened with Smoldering Egg. It's a 2 mana, does nothing until it does something. This card reminds me of that a little bit. 2 mana does nothing until it really does something, and then they have to care and try to respect it. I'm not as high on this as most of the other cards, but I think that there is something here that breaks a staring match situation where they have to care at some point. And in the meantime, it is doing you some good, like fixing your draw and making it interesting. It's also a 2-mana creature. You can bring it back with things that can reanimate a 2-mana creature. You can bounce it with Fading Hope, although I really don't think that's very good. But I don't know. There might be something here for like long game situations. 1 or 2 of it. It's like a bad search for Azcanta, but we don't have a search for Azcanta.
You know what it reminds me of the most is Jace Vryn's Prodigy. It's like a bad Jace Vryn's Prodigy, right?
Yeah. 6 mana is a lot to pay to get the backside, but if you ever do, it's like you ultimated a Planeswalker. That's really
the backside's good. The backside's good. I mean, the place I see this the most is in a control mirror. The unfortunate thing about it is that if your opponent wants to deal with it, they will. So like if they have to respect it enough, they will. It bites it pretty hard to divide by 0, which sucks, which is a card that you tend to keep in control mirrors, right?
I think you're happy about it as long as you don't go to activate the ability. You know?
So if you're just using it to kind of filter your thing.
Kind of have to stare at the opponent, you know what I mean? Also, let me get this right. So the transform, the may pay part, that is part of the resolution of the tap to do the draw a card and loot, right? So if you have 6 mana and you tap this, they have to respond then, and you don't have to commit the mana.
Actually, no. Right? I think you do. It's part of the cost, right? It's part of the cost. I'm pretty sure you have to pay it before the trigger goes on.
Let's see. There's draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at that card. There's a period. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. There's a period. you may pay for in a blue. If you do transform, I think that means it's part of the resolution of the ability because it's all one line, but there's a period between like the part that goes off, the tapping part.
Judge.
The
way I read this card is that you have to decide whether to pay the 6 mana before the trigger goes on the stack, but I'm not the most reliable of sources on stuff like this. So
yeah, I think it's like the Kozuma trigger. And I know that's a triggered ability and this is a tap ability, but they both hit the like this is going to hit the stack as one thing. There aren't 2 triggers here. It hits as one thing.
Right.
And so when you tap this, like exiling the card isn't part of the cost, right? So picture the way it works in Arena. You turn this sideways, ability on the stack, opponent hits OK. All the rest of it happens. The draw, the exile the card, and the may pay the cost. All the rest of it happens without touching the stack.
I see what you mean. Yeah. No, I see what you mean. You're right. Interesting.
So if they divide by 0, and you did that during your turn, they have the option to divide by 0 the enchantment, but you get to cast a free spell. But you don't have to pay. Yeah. You also don't have to pay. Yeah. I mean, and regardless, right? Like if your opponent's burning a divide by 0 on your 2-drop, like it's not terrible for you in a control matchup anyway. Yeah. It's interesting. I think the way that this card actually works on the stack is a big part of just, is it good?
Yeah. No, I mean, because like in any faster or creature-based matchup, this card's going to be embarrassing. So you have to find the right spot for it. But I mean, I agree. It basically is kind of like a search for Azcanta-ish kind of a card. I mean, meh.
We'll see. I'm gonna craft one and see what happens. And I think that most people should craft 0 and wait.
Yeah. hard pass on this for the crafting guide for the time being. Let some good player like CovertGoBlue or someone else figure it out for you. Okay, next card, one of the most controversial cards in the set, more than anything just because of the timing. So let's talk about Alchemist's Gambit. Now, they couldn't have picked a more perfect time to print and reveal this card if they were like trying as hard as they could to piss off the entire standard playing Magic community. I mean, this is like literally, this card reads like 1 red sorcery, piss off the Magic community, right?
Better tell the people who haven't been like tuned into Twitter what's going on.
Okay, so this is 1 red for a sorcery at rare. I'm going to read the bottom first. Take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can't be prevented. Now we have in brackets. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game, and then you exile Alchemist's Gambit. So with the like vanilla printing of the card, if you cast it for its casting cost at the top of the card, you get 1 extra turn. At the end of that turn, you lose. Which is what was the
Final Fortune,
Glory or something?
Oh, Chance for Glory is also
Chance for Glory. I think was the last time we had this.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, Final Fortune exactly as similar text. So if you don't want to have that lose the game clause at the end of the card, you can pay it for its cleave cost, which is 4 blue red. So if you pay the 7 MV to cast this card, then you take an extra turn. Damage can't be prevented during that turn, and then you exile this, and that's it. So first of all, let's talk about what makes this different from most extra turn cards, which is the damage can't be prevented part. I think that's quite interesting, right?
No, I'm not interested. I think that is. I don't think that matters. Tell me that. Okay, tell me what you've got that makes that important or interesting.
It's not necessarily that this is the main cost on the card. I just think it's going to come up, right? In the same way that you consistently got hosed by like Questing Beast or Bone Crusher Giant, right? Like
I don't know if I ever got hosed by that text.
Really? It never came up?
I mean, maybe it's a limited thing.
It never came up for you?
It ever happened to me, no.
I had so many edge cases. I mean, I played a lot of both of those cards. I had so many edge cases where like stuff didn't behave the way I thought it was going to based on that text, right?
Okay.
Things like Indestructible, Things like I'm trying to remember what else prevents damage.
Okay, yeah, indestructible doesn't prevent damage, so it shouldn't have messed with that. It's protection is what you're thinking of, I think.
Oh, is it protection that I'm thinking
I think
of?
so.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe it's protection. I had one sweet game in Historic where I beat the Solemnity 9 lives combo
Yeah,
by
that's a
just
good
bone
one.
crushing my opponent's face and then attacking. Anyway, it can come up, it can matter. So that's one of the I just want to highlight that text because I think it's the most forgettable part of the card, but it is a part of the card. But now let's just get to the main cost, the fact that we have another extra turn card in standard. And I don't know, CGB, like, how do you actually come? I mean, I know that like there's public opinion on this card. How do you actually feel about this card?
It's definitely worse than Elrond's Epiphany.
Agreed.
Let's just get that done. Elrond's Epiphany comes with the clock. That's what makes it Elrond's Epiphany right now. It's worse than Nexus. Doesn't.
Yeah. No, sorry. Go ahead. I mean, it's mono blue, which is also really good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. You don't have to play red. It works. Yep. It's worse than Nexus of Fate because that shuffled itself back in. You know.
Yeah.
But here's what drives me crazy about this card. What the hell are they doing? Why?
You mean like why do they keep doing this?
Just why? Lay it out. Lay it out. Best case scenario for everybody who doesn't get off on just never letting their opponent play Magic anymore is that this card sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. And nobody plays it.
No one plays it.
Yep.
And then that's a failure for Wizards.
Yep.
Right.
And you just wasted some rare some rare packs opening this thing.
Yeah.
It was like maybe they played it in limited and oh my God, that's so funny. All right. Other, I guess, win scenario is you play this in mono red and it like gets you that one extra turn you win because Final Fortune was exciting. So this is like a one of in mono red, or it's a one of in Is It because the fifth turn is better than whatever other card would be in that spot. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like the second kind of this card has a job, but what did it really do? It just, what was the point of this? Because it doesn't really add anything good to either of those decks. They still have to do all the things they already do with the cards they have. It's just, they get one more turn. Then here's the fail state. And this is what I think I'm going to be trying on day one. And I think a lot of people are. What if you're just at critical mass where your deck is interaction and ramp with treasures, get to 7 mana, and you just want every possible draw that can be a time walk to be a time walk. And now instead of 4 of them, we have 8 of them. And like...
So one of the reasons having 8 of them in your deck is not such an implausible scenario is that the Is It deck already has such good draw and filtering, right?
Yes.
So like Fading Hope helps you get one of these off the top of your deck if you don't want to draw one. Expressive Iteration lets you just put one back in your deck for later. Even if you do end up drawing a couple extra of them, that's fine. I mean, the deck just draws so many cards. You can even filter them away with cards like the command, Prismari command. Heck, if you're running the full 8, you might start running that the red burn spell that deals 3 that lets you draw 2, discard 2, right? So it just like you might add a little extra filtering in your deck just to offset those scenarios. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons it's so tilting. I think like if the deck didn't have such excellent card draw and selection, it would be more of an issue. But I feel like it's really not. I mean, maybe they'll start even just like running a couple copies of the Celestis to make, there's so many ways to deal with that particular problem. And I think that's what's really tilting about it.
We're even going to have another card that digs 6 deep to find this and comes with a body. We'll get to that in a little while.
Oh boy, that's fun.
Yeah, that's like my ground zero for the format now because of where we're already at is, can we just, when we hit 7 mana, our opponent doesn't untap very often anymore. And how often, too, do you take like 2 or 3 turns in a row? Maybe you don't end the game, but you're so far ahead on land, on resources. It just doesn't feel like the opponent has any chance anymore. And it's so stupid. Like,
Yeah.
why?
So another thing that's annoying about this card is that like the two relevant dragons in these Izzet decks are both really good at closing the game as well. So if your opponent taps out, there's a reasonable chance you can just cast this for the 3 mana side and you deterministically win. Like you just look
Oh,
at what you've
God.
got either on the board or in your hand, and you're like, the math adds up. My opponent's tapped out, game's over, right? So that's really tilting as well, especially with the fact that like Goldspan Dragon can generate 2/3 of the mana to cast this card just off of like one attack, right? Off of one treasure. So you can just have access to so much other mana to do whatever you need to kill them, right? So you can do something like attack with your Goldspan Dragon, cast this, next turn power up your Hall of the Storm Giants. You're swinging for 11. You know what I mean?
There's another dragon we're going to cover that's going to do this job impressively as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like, oh my goodness, like the 3 mana side of this might really matter as well. So yeah, I mean, I just feel like nothing good can come of this, and the timing is so awful.
Yeah.
So here's a question, CovertGoBlue. What do you think of the Gambit Scab combo, where you're flashing in your Scab to exploit to cancel out the losing the game trigger? What do you think about that?
Nah, just win.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty stupid too.
Yep. I mean, you have to have a pretty good battlefield that's attacking and that your opponents didn't interact with for the first several turns for that to be any good.
Yeah, here's the other thing is that I don't think Scab goes into Izzet decks.
Yeah, I agree.
It's you need, cheap creatures to sack to it and stuff.
Yep.
I have we expended enough bile on this card?
I'm gonna craft 4 because it might be just critical mass, the critical mass question. I think that the average player, some people this is going to appeal to. They like doing the busted thing, so you might also try it, but I would wait and probably not craft it until we see, because there's a chance that every card in Izzet is already good enough and they don't need it.
Yeah, it might have the perfect balance already, and this card adds nothing. Yeah. So totally agree that. Yeah. And I definitely agreed with you that like it's most plausible for me to imagine this being like the 5th or the 6th copy of Alrund's Epiphany in your deck rather than the full 4 of, like to fill it out to 8. So, yep. But yeah, I mean, this card will see play.
You gonna craft it?
Yeah. I guess I'll start with 2.
You like doing the broken thing on day 1?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I like doing it before it's cool. Although the problem is it's already cool, so maybe I'm off it.
So let's talk about the next cool card that goes in the deck. I'll take over reading for a minute.
Okay, excellent.
Wandering Mind is 1 and a blue-red. This is 3 mana for a 2/1 flying horror with a art that looks like just a brain flying through the air with a tongue. I don't know. It's disgusting,
exactly
horrible
what's
art.
Going on here. Yeah.
It has flying. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. What do you think of 3 mana 2/1 that digs you 6 deep for a spell of your choice?
I mean, it's a sweet card. Again, it's kind of like we were saying before. I don't know if there's like room in the Izzet deck to play a card like this, right? But worth trying. I mean, Fading Hope it to go for round 2 the next turn. That's kind of sweet too.
Yep. Any kind of copying, bouncing, or blinking, you do it again and again, which is pretty exciting.
Isn't it a bit slow?
I mean, at 3 mana, it's like at that borderline where we don't usually play 3 mana 2/1 draw a card anymore because it's off. But that selection is
a lot of cards.
What are we usually doing on turn 3? And is it you're trying to set up expressive iteration? That's look at 3 cards. You get to put 1 into play and you keep 1 for later. This is kind of the same spot, but you go 6 deep for a card. That selection might be really good.
Yeah, one of the things that sucks about it is that like it's not going to help you hit your next land drop, right? Like it's.
I mean, is it Spikefield Hazard, Jwari Disruption,
okay,
Shadow Skull Smashing? Let's go.
Fair enough. You have a good point. There. Yeah. This okay. So I'm not disputing this is a cool card. This does read to me like it's just you won't find the space for it more than anything. But maybe. And here's the other thing, right? This is exactly the kind of card that might be a total breaker in the mirror. So that's a thing to think about too.
Yeah, you always have it, whatever it is. I think this is like a 1 of or 2 of, though, because I don't think, I mean, we'll see, but when you run 4, there's diminishing returns. You have more creatures, you're less likely to hit with it. So it's like a glue card to me. It's like a 2 of.
Yeah, it's a sweet card. Definitely just, I agree. Like the power levels there.
Why can't it be blue-white?
Yeah.
Why can't it be blue-green? Like,
just casting it off of
why
treasure.
Does it have to be Is It? Why is it the new Simic, man? Why is everything blue and red?
I know. Oh, that's so true. I mean, this is a very classically Is It ability here, but I take your point. It is kind of annoying.
All right. I'm going to move to the next card.
Yep.
Mana Form Hellkite. 2 red creature dragon 4/4 flyer. Whenever it is a mythic. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX red dragon illusion creature token with flying and haste, where X is the amount of mana you cast you spent to cast that spell. Exile the token at the beginning of the next end step. Arjuna, I want to present a scenario with this card before I get your take.
Okay, go for it.
Your opponent has scrambled. They've done everything they can, but they finally dealt with your Goldspan Dragon and all your other nonsense. But they're tapped out. You untap. You have 7 mana available through this and like maybe a treasure.
Yeah,
you play this card. You cast Alchemist Gambit for 3 mana, and you make a 3/3 haster, and you attack the opponent for 3. You untap for your free turn, and you cast, I don't know, flashback
Epiphany.
No, it doesn't matter because you're going to lose at the end of this turn.
Memory Deluge.
Yeah, say you just flashback Memory Deluge. You make a 7/7 to go with your 4/4. So that's at 14. So if they were at 14 or less, they're dead.
They're just dead.
Yeah, just dead.
I mean, obviously that's a pretty sweet little scenario there. This is another in the long line of 4/4 flyers for 4, which have to pass the historical test of like, will this be the next playable 4/4 flyer for 4? Now, granted, so let's talk about Moonveil Regent, right? Because that one came as close as they ever have. I would still contend that card is a fringe player in the format. I mean, okay, it did reach the actual World's Final, but like, who else is playing that card? And I would also argue that it wasn't a crucial card in that deck.
Like the Primal Adversary that you take so much credit for?
Well, I agree. Primal Adversary, I'm not arguing that Primal Adversary has been particularly more playable, but I just want to say that I feel like I got Moonveil Regent pretty right so far, anyway.
So here's the thing. Moonveil Regent, you play it and you untap and you might get a little value, assuming that you're low on hand size. Play this and untap, they're dead.
I mean, like, in the Is It deck, this is going to get a lot done. Don't disagree there. It's going to get a lot done if you untap with it. Yeah.
And not to mention...
It's gonna, what this is going to feel like? This is going to feel like you just got to play your flipped egg. Right? Yeah. Like that's kind of what it's gonna like. I just paid 2 extra mana and I played that egg flipped, and now here we are. Right?
Yeah. More so, like in my opinion, like this thing runs downhill really fast. You play a divide by 0 on their thing and an environmental sciences, you're attacking with 5 additional power. Like there's so much damage and it's so fast.
It's like Shock Typhoon stapled to a creature, right? That's kind of how it feels.
There is though another way to play it. Like, so this is something I got into on my stream, how I would play the card. I'm not like, you might slam it on turn 4 and hope it lives. But what if you just slam this on turn 7 and say go? And your opponent does, I don't know, anything interesting at all. Or like maybe they stare at you. But like, for example, if they're attacking you with like 3 or 4 creatures and you cast Divide by 0, you can make a 3/3 and block.
Yeah, a blocker.
It just takes on 3 creatures, probably eats their smallest one. The Hellkite blocks and eats something. But you can also do this. Yeah. Say you have 8 mana and you play this and you say go, and the opponent does whatever, and this lives. On their end step, you cast Memory Deluge. The token exiles at the beginning
at the beginning. Okay, that's tricky. At the beginning
of the next end step. So you untap with the 4/4 dragon.
That's tricky, man.
And then you flash back the Memory Deluge and make a 7/7, and you're attacking for 15.
Yeah.
And you looked
Yeah,
at four new cards.
That's a nasty little workaround there for sure.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
this
And
card
you
I
know,
think kills so much faster than Moonveil Regent that I think it deserves more respect.
so the hasty nature of the tokens is really good because it incentivizes you to do things like play this, leave up Fading Hope, bounce back to your hand if it gets targeted by a removal spell, and just play it again the next turn because like you're gonna get value out of it. You're gonna get hasty damage out of it. Like, so I mean, I do think that that's fairly compelling. It's still, this is another one. It's kind of like those 4-mana flash flyers that you enjoy so much, where like I just need to see it because like these cards always look so good, CGB. They always look so good, and they so often fall flat. And I'm just
you're over it. Yeah,
I'm taking the under, man. I'm taking the under or taking the over it. Right?
How many Leyline Tyrants did you craft?
I crafted 0, dude. I was off that card.
Come on.
I was off that card.
I thought somewhere you got burned by this. It sounds like you're just endlessly cynical.
I was never into it, man.
Okay, fair.
I think, I learned I think it was actually Mind Rack Demon when I was playing paper. Right? Now that card had a significant downside, but I just learned how bad like these flyers can be. The card that really stood out to me was the Theros one Night Shepherd or something.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what I'm
Nightmare
talking about?
Shepherd. Yep.
Nightmare Shepherd, right? That was like kind of a sacrifice combo enabler kind of card.
I was hyped for that card.
Everyone was hyped for that card, and it was such an underperformer, right? And it just like it really illustrated to me the dangers of 4-mana creatures, right?
Yeah.
And there's just, for some reason, CovertGoBlue, they do this every set.
Oh yeah,
every set
they do.
We have, and it's usually a red one, but if it's not, it's a black one, right? They have the 4-mana 4-powered flyer that has some sweet ability on it, and it's just like I feel like there's like an archetype, right? Like on the wall, they have like a diagram, and every set they need to like fill in certain archetypes. Like the cheap black removal spell, the blue counter spell, whatever. And I swear they have like 4-mana 4-powered flyer on that, right? And then it's just every set they put one of them out, and every set it ends up not being playable, and it's just like it's the stories all the time.
I'm crafting 3.
Okay. All right, crafties, I will let you use your discernment to decide how important your mythic wildcards are to you. But you know what, CovertGoBlue? Who knows? Maybe you'll be the visionary who finally called it on one of these cards.
We'll see.
I also believe you're going to have some video with like a 75% win rate with this card. So whatever. You do you. Keep being fabulous, CGB.
Next card is Hamlet Vanguard. 2 and a green for a human warrior. It has Ward 2, and it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it for each other non-human creature, non-token human. God, that's hard. Each other non-token human you control. It's a 1/1 to start. It's a rare. So yeah, 3-mana 1/1, Ward 2, gets 2 +1/+1 counters for each other non-token human you control. What do you think?
How do you say off it in Innistradian?
Okay, so the dream I think that people see is 1 mana human, 2 mana human, 3 mana Ward 2 5/5.
5/5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure. Is that even that good?
There are people that will die to it, especially if the second human was Thalia. Okay,
that's
really
fair.
hard
That's
to
fair.
kill this thing.
That's a curve.
Yeah.
That's a curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, but right? Here's the but. What about any other scenario?
Oh yeah, off the top as a 1/1 with Ward 2, this thing is trash.
Terrible, right?
Bad.
I mean, or just like your opponent sees it coming. Your opponent sees it coming down, and they just burn out whatever else. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, cool, Cinderclasm.
Yep, they can kill things in response to this. If that's why Talia's an important part of that scenario, so that they don't do like a Cinderclasm in response. But
one of the other reasons I kind of hate this is that I just feel like humans is often a token strategy. Not always, but I feel like a lot of your incentives point you in the direction of it being a token strategy. So those aren't helping out Hamlet Vanguard at all.
Yeah, I also think that 1-drops are pretty sparse in the human tribe that you actually want to play. So
I agree.
Yeah,
I mean, there are going to be times when this comes down as like a 9/9 or something, and your opponent's going to like have to scramble to deal with it. But
oh, dude, on turn 1 you can play the cobbled lancer. On turn 2 you can play join the dance. On turn 3 there's a 7/7.
Wait, is the cobbled lancer a human?
Yeah.
Is it?
Or no, I said cobbled lancer. I was looking at the wrong thing. No wonder that sounded stupid. Hopeful initiate is what I mean.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that's
looking
true.
At the wrong column. We have columns.
That's true.
On the spreadsheet.
The 3 1-drop curve looks pretty good with this for sure.
We're gonna lose to this sometimes.
Yeah, but it'll happen.
I think it's gonna be fringe. I think it's only good when you're really ahead already, and almost any decent 3-drop would probably keep pushing you forward and help you win the game.
Hey, this is the problem. It's a fringe card and a fringe archetype. Need I say more?
I'll end up crafting it because I think that this is an archetype people are interested in, but I would not craft it. If I weren't making content, I would not craft it.
I predict I will not craft a single one of these.
Okay.
Ever.
Cool. So, you ready for the next card? Splendid
Indeed.
Reclamation. This is
back again.
Yeah, reprint. 3 and a green sorcery. Return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped at rare.
So this card did a sum total of nothing in standard the last time it was printed. Am I correct?
I don't remember this in standard, so probably.
Yeah, it did nothing.
Okay.
Now we're going to have another bite at the apple. I can't imagine this card doing anything. I haven't seen any cards printed recently that dump an inordinate number of lands in your graveyard. You know what's kind of tilting CovertGoBlue? They printed 2 sorceries in this set, both of which you get for free on Ren and 7.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, right?
Yeah, just play Ren and 7 if you want these effects.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm like sus about is we still have Zendikar Rising. So we still have the landfall set, and we have cards that haven't done nothing, like Valakut Awakening and Nahiri's Lithoforming, and Lotus Cobra. So there's like grounds for some kind of a combo deck. I can't really believe in it until I see it. I don't know how to build it, but I think we have to mention this because I consider it a threat, because who knows? It does something other cards can't do.
It's an odd reprint. I don't think that this card costs a lot due to it seeing a lot of play in like Commander or whatever, right? I have to imagine that it's not a very valuable card. Although actually that's interesting.
No, it's a Commander. It's a pretty popular Commander card.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm seeing it's currently selling for $5. So maybe they just wanted to print more of them.
Yep.
It's kind of hard for me to imagine printing this card without some kind of somewhere in standard them having an idea about. But,
like a Time Walk for 3 mana. They obviously have a good idea where they want this format going, dude.
I know, right?
I'm not crafting it. Somebody has to show me this deck,
Yeah, this is Crafty's just pretend this card doesn't exist until otherwise notified.
All right, I'm going to read Ulvenwald Oddity.
I'm actually really interested to hear your take on this card.
2 green 4/4. So 4 mana 4/4, rare beast. Has trample, has haste, and for 7 mana, that's 5 and a green, you can transform Ulvenwald Oddity. The backside is Ulvenwald Behemoth. This is a beast horror. It's a trample haste. It's an 8/8. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste.
All right, first things first. This creature on the backside is like one of the most terrifying looking woodland animals I've ever seen in my life.
It's a moose with a face hugger jumping out of its belly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just grotesque in the extreme. Like, holy crap. Like you have this background of a bunch of really fearsome looking like wolf creatures who are clearly just terrified of this thing. So anyway, so here's the question, CovertGoBlue. Is a 4/4 trample haste for 4 good enough?
No.
I agree.
Yeah, this is Questing Beast at home. Lots of text,
Yeah.
but just not up to snuff to me. I'd rather have Chariot every day of the week. There
I
might
agree.
Froghemoth, I think is
Honestly,
more relevant.
This is one of those ones where I think I would actually rather have the gnarly professor.
I suppose it's the fact that it's close tells me don't craft.
Yeah, I would hold off on this one, crafties. Again, watch someone prove it. I mean, the flip side is like pretty decent, but again, like you spend 7 mana for it and your opponent can respond. And there is this little card called Fading Hope in the format. I would give this one a miss.
All right. The next card I have is Brinecomer. It's 1 and a white and a blue, so 3 mana for a 1/1 spirit. When it enters the battlefield or becomes a target of an aura, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. It has Disturb, so you can bring it back on the backside for a white and a blue. The backside is an enchantment aura. When it enters the battlefield or enchanted creature becomes the target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. And if it has Disturb text, if it would die or go to the graveyard from anywhere, you exile it. I put this on the list because it's got a little Lingering Souls to it, and it does a good job of pooping out some 1/1s. And I think that there are places where that could be okay, but I'm not that optimistic. I was curious what you thought.
Yes, such an Azorius mage, CovertGoBlue. I feel like just giving all of those blue-white cards a chance, man. I love it. I love it. Well, you know what I love about it most is like I feel like when we started this podcast, I was like the magic player who goes to the pound and wants to bring all of the uncommons home with me. And I feel like for the last couple of sets, I've been like the cold, hard realist, right? And I feel like we've managed to trade places and you've come out as the optimist, which I think is totally fine. But I just think it's kind of an irony that I'm appreciating this card sucks. Right now. Okay.
And I think people are have an affinity for Lingering Souls, and I wanted to tell them straight up this isn't Lingering Souls, and not to get too excited.
Okay, fair enough. So you brought it all the way here. You let it wait like backstage just for like, over 2 hours to have its final debut. You brought it onto the stage and then you freaking pantsed it. You just pulled that little wedding dress right off of this poor little Azorius card.
Next
you
card
really are
is
dastard.
Next card is Aruth, Tormented Prophet. 1 and a blue-red, 3 mana for a 2/4 human wizard. And if you would draw a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library instead. You may play those cards this turn.
Mm-hmm.
I had to put this on the list because I felt like legendary cards like this on like kind of interesting bodies have like they've been what I've missed. In particular, I think I missed Lear. And I think if there's a weird card that's likely to be another Lear in this set, I think it's this one. What do you think?
Yeah, this I'm glad that you added this one. I would have added it if you had not. This reads to me to be one of those cards where like don't rush out and craft this crafties, but this card could definitely end up in some kind of pretty sweet and potentially busted deck. Just the ability, like it's a howling mine, right? But it's more than a howling mine because if you're drawing additional cards, then you get additional exiles. So this has the like go off on 1 turn, kill your opponent potential, especially with all of this treasure combo stuff in the format, right? Yeah. So, I mean, this could be like one of those like treasury, like just your opponent never gets another turn, not because you took a bunch of turns, but just because you went off on 1 turn and killed them kind of a card. So yeah, I definitely am not going to count this one out for sure.
I'm very concerned about what can happen if the opponent untaps with it. And as a 3 mana 2/4, a lot of bad things can happen to it, but all you have to do when it's in play to get more than the sum of its parts is draw a card, which is built into every turn anyway, and a lot of decks have other ways to do. Card neutral cards like Faithful Mending and Prismari Command are suddenly card positive. Unexpected Windfall is suddenly even more card positive. This might be nutty.
Could be. Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on this card for the entirety of its time in Standard.
All right. The next card that I have is the other 3 mana Planeswalker, Kaya Ghost Hunter. Geist Hunter? Kaya Geist Hunter.
Geist Hunter.
Yep. 1 and a white black, so 3 mana, 3 loyalty, mythic rare. +1. Creatures you control gain death touch until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 creature token you control. -2. Until end of turn. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. -6. Exile all cards from all graveyards. Then create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card exiled this way. That's a lot of tokens.
It's a lot of tokens, man. You know what I want to do with this? I want to -2 it and then sack a shambling gas to a deadly dispute. That's what I want to do. It's gonna make a lot of treasure.
You're gonna make 2 treasures? Oh, with the shambling gas, you're gonna make 4 treasures.
You're gonna make 4 treasures. Yep.
You
know what? It's not much, but it's honest work.
Is this card... So a lot of people are looking at this card like, ugh. Quite honestly. Like, it's not getting a lot of people excited, but I think it's definitely going to hold a good price tag because of Commander, because doubling tokens is a very important redundancy effect that a lot of people want in Commander. But... like, compared to Sparring Regiment, a card that I played in Best of One, like a good amount.
That's a good comparison, yeah.
Yeah, Sparring Regiment learns you a really trashy sorcery.
Yeah.
This gives you a Planeswalker with other abilities, including the ability to double tokens on something. And the +1, like, it gets your creature through, and it's growing your creature. Like we've learned to love that ability. Ranger class, Luminar Gas Pirate, you know? We love that ability.
I like this card so much more without that creature token clause. You know, if it was just any creature, it would be so much better.
You're right.
A whole tick up on the totem pole better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a killer. Like, we need to be able to make cheap tokens to get basically any value out of the +1, because I'll tell you what, man, giving the team death touch, it's not enough. So
what do you think of this card in Abzan tokens? So you can go turn 2. You're going to say it?
That's what I was going to say, is that I like this most in Abzan. I mean, look at the freaking incredible token makers we have in green, right? We have the Chariot, and then we carve that into freaking Ren and 7. Like, one of those is going to pay you massively.
Yeah, you can go turn 2, Ranger class, or join the dance or something. Make a token. Turn 2 Ranger class will say you can put a +1/+1 counter and attack with that thing next turn and have a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. If you're on the play, they're going to have a hard time killing it. And then on the next turn, you -2 and you play Chariot. Oh my God. That's so many cats.
That's a lot. You know what I want to do? I want to put all of those cards into a deck with Storm the Festival and just freaking go nuts. That's
I love how full circle you are on Storm the Festival, man.
You know, okay. Check out what you could do in one turn with this, right? If you already have a Chariot in play, you could Storm the Festival. You could hit Kaya and Ren and 7. You could -2 on Kaya. Okay. Then you -3 on Ren and 7. You make 2 tokens. Okay. Copy one of them with the Chariot attack. Make 2 tokens. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
If you ever take another turn, it will be impressive.
Indeed.
That's the problem.
That's a good point.
That's the problem.
That's a good point. Yep. That's always the problem. But hey, you know what? You did your thing. You had fun. That's all I need to enjoy Magic.
So for the kids at home, I think Kaya is really niche, and I don't recommend crafting it until somebody shows you that it can rumble in this format, because I don't think it has quite what it takes with the format as it is.
We either need like a good combo like that we just outlined, or like a really viable kind of tokeny deck that's doing something. I don't know, man. Maybe we'll get some Spirits deck eventually. Whatever. Interesting card.
So speaking of tokens, here's an Abzan card possibly. This is a rare. This is Old Rutstein? Old Rutstein.
Yep.
This is a Golgari
Rusty.
card. Old Rusty.
Which, by the way, I just want to highlight, there's like this proud tradition of Innistrad cards that have just like one super creepy looking dude on them, right? Like, this is just joining like a veritable bevy of cards that have like this one kind of super bachelory weird creepy dude on them.
Creeper of the Set Award. Okay.
Yeah, Creeper of the Set Award definitely goes to Old Rutstein.
3 mana for a 1/4. It's a 1 and a black-green human peasant. When Old Rutstein enters the battlefield, or at the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. If a land is milled, create a treasure. If a creature is milled, create a 1/1 insect creature token. If a non-creature, non-land card is milled this way, create a blood token. That's a lot of, like, you always get something. You always get some token that is somehow relevant when it ETBs and every upkeep. What do you think?
You know what I think? I think that like what old Rusty has hiding behind that lantern and that backpack full of mushrooms and like this kind of dark forest gate behind him is just the world's largest ass. You know what I mean? This guy's been freaking like working those glutes, dude.
He and Skullport Merchant and Sailor of Memes all go to the same gym.
And Blood, yeah, exactly. And whoever that Blood Sipper is, yeah, man, they're just like caboose. The caboose is loose. But yeah, getting back to any kind of furrowed brow magic, the more I read this card, the more enamored of it I am. Like, this thing just generates tremendous value, right?
Yeah,
I feel like this is the kind of card where like you're gonna play it and your opponent's gonna be like, oh, it's all rusty and I'm not worried about that, and then like 3 or 4 turns later they're like, I should have fucking killed that thing, you know? Like that's how it's gonna go, I think.
Especially when those 3 or 4 turns are yours because you took all the turns with old Rusty on the battlefield. Oh my god,
Sultai Rusty, let's go.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so the ETB and upkeep is really nice, right? Like they could have been mean to us and made this an attack trigger, but no, we just get it for free. So yeah, I mean, really the only question is like, what shell do you put it in? Because just on its own, it's doing a lot.
I don't think I'd run for Skullport Merchant anymore if I can put green in my deck, and I think I'd replace at least 1 or 2 of those with this because I think it's better in a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tilting, right? Because I think the problem with this card is like you're gonna play it and you're gonna be like treasure, 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 and then you're gonna get a blood token. It's gonna suck, right?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I there's times where you're gonna want the 1/1. There's times where you're gonna want the blood token. Not having the agency is risky, but I think what makes it better is it doesn't suck to put things in your graveyard. Like there's a lot of graveyard matters stuff you can do.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. I think this card is worth looking at. I think it could show up somewhere. It definitely reads like a card that could show up as like a 2 of in some deck and just kind of checking off boxes that you're really happy with it.
Yeah, I think
the inconsistency of it's going to be tough, right? So like if you have a super like treasure specific deck, you're going to be bummed when you get the blood token. If you have a super sack specific deck, the good news is that decks like you were saying, like these treasure, blood on the snow decks and whatever, they kind of are okay with any of it, right?
Yeah,
like because one of the nicest things about this is that dispute can sacrifice a blood token, right? Because it just has to be an artifact. Is that right? Or is it a treasure?
I thought it was a treasure. Maybe is it an artifact? I thought it was a treasure.
Let me look this up. Deadly dispute is yes, as an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature. Nice. Boom, we got that. So
blood merchant is a treasure. Right.
The merchant is the treasure.
Merchant is the treasure. Okay.
Yep. Nice. No, you're right. But so that actually gives a lot more play to the blood tokens in this deck. So yeah, man, maybe we're in for like a Golgari or even an Abzan build of the deck, especially now that the mana supports it.
Yep. I'm into it. I want to try this card out.
Sweet.
The next card that you put on the list. All right, you've got to do the next 3 because you added these.
Okay,
if you still want to do them, let's go.
All right, I'm. Don't rush out and craft this card, but I just had to talk about it. Faithbound Judge, 1 white creature, spirit soldier at Mythic. By the way, it's a 4/4. Defender, flying vigilance. You don't often see defender and vigilance on the same card, but let's go. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Faithbound Judge has 2 or fewer judgment counters on it, put a judgment counter on it. As long as Faithbound Judge has 3 or more judgment counters on it, it can attack as though it didn't have defender. But wait, there's more. It has a disturb of 5 white. It comes down, flips over rather, as an enchantment or a curse. Sinner's Judgment, showing just the saddest looking demon getting completely shafted by some ghost swords. It's an enchant player, and at the beginning of your upkeep, put a judgment counter on Sinner's Judgment. Then, if there are 3 or more judgment counters on it, enchanted player loses the game. If Sinner's Judgment will be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So I feel like this card is super funky. It's a mythic. It can make your opponent lose the game. I feel like we should at least, discuss it.
Okay, are you done?
Card discussed. Let's move along. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
I mean, I give it a 0. I don't see how this is playable.
So here's the thing, right? It's not necessarily a great card. I just think that the ability to like get a you win the game enchantment back from the graveyard could be really sweet, right? Couldn't that be sweet?
I struggle to see how. I feel like if this card is going to get played, it's because the front side is actually a good thing to be doing when you're getting a beat down. And that's about it. And I don't think it is right now. I feel like you play this and it turns on their Banishing Priest, it turns on their Blizzard Brawl, and they just pound right through it.
The kind of deck this card reminds me of is like a Doom Foretold style of a deck, right? If you end up having a deck like that, which has this super long game plan and this super kind of like grindy plan, and this plan of like getting a bunch of card X, Y, or Z into the graveyard and doing something with it. I feel like just like having a win con like this in the deck can be really sweet, especially since you can play it on the front side to just block and buy you a little extra time. So, I mean, that's the scenario. I'm like, I don't think that this just goes into a deck. I think that there are certain decks in the format which have particular plans that might be super stoked to have a weird card like this.
How many are you crafting?
I mean, none to start.
Okay.
Yeah. To be clear, right? So crafties, like, don't go out and craft this card right now. I just like this is the kind of card that might see absolutely zero play, but it could show up, man. Like it really could. It could show up.
My problem is that the front side, I don't think does what you need to do in the matchups where you want it. And the backside is 7 mana, do literal nothing, which I just don't think you can do anymore.
I agree that in the current meta, it's like an actual 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's say a few things get banned, and
I don't
tweak the knobs a little bit.
They would have to ban like 30 cards before I touch it.
Wow. Okay. The true cynic. All right.
Well, hit me with the next one. See if you can sell me the next one.
Averbrook Caretaker, the only reason I put this one in is just that I think people are going to want to hear us talk about it.
Okay.
I'm not going to craft any of these off the bat, but I do not think this is a terrible card. So Averbrook Caretaker, 4 green, creature human werewolf at Mythic. It has hexproof. It's a 4/4. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2+1/+1 counters on another target creature you control. It has Daybound, and on the night side, it is Hollowhenge Huntmaster. So it's a nice little alliteration there. So this is a 6/6 also with hexproof. Other permanents you control have hexproof, period. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2+1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So this is clearly a very powerful card. It clearly is a card that your opponent is going to worry about if they're not just taking all the turns in the world. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, CGB?
I think that if we are cheating things into play, this is another one along with the Kraken that is like, okay, now we have things that if we cheat it into play, don't just die, get bounced, or embarrass you. If you like can play them at reduced cost, it's really powerful. Yeah. It's one of the first. This and the Kraken are 2 cards that made me look at Dream Devourer and actually wonder if that is a playable Magic card.
Nice.
Nice. So.
But let's say that you were playing the green Symmetry dog dude and you were just getting this down for 5 mana. Feels a lot better at 5 than it does at 6, right?
Green Symmetry dog dude.
The green one in the cycle of the cemetery guys.
Oh, yep, Cemetery Prowler. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I hear you say cemetery like symmetry. Like freaking like it's in math class or something.
We need to teach CovertGoBlue how to speak English. Apparently,
we really don't. Anyway, this card, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not played, and I'm not going to craft it. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we actually found ways to cheat this into play that made sense and were good. I got burned pretty hard by Tulsimir Huntmaster. I thought Tulsimir's Huntmaster was a really good 6-mana creature, and it didn't often die to Doomblade like I thought it would. And when it did, it left behind bodies, and it still just was too slow and
wasn't
not good.
really enough.
So
it's just the format's not about that, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like the format could potentially become about stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm super cynical that will ever happen. But I just, this card's not a bad card. I just don't.
Yeah.
Not what the format's here for. And if they play it against you in limited, you uninstall Magic Arena.
Yeah. Yes, that is just not nice ever. I predict that this will see a small amount of sideboard play in particular spots in Standard, but it could never show up. So definite initial crafting guide is 0. Let's skip this next card. It was just an oddity I was thinking about. So let's go to the next card, which is Consuming Tide. Which,
how's your voice?
CovertGoBlue. I'm so annoyed. I'm so annoyed.
Okay.
I've been waiting for a reprint of God, I just had the card name in my mind. Why did I forget it? The Tide card. What is it called? Rising Tide?
Rising Waters?
No, it's I'll remember it in a minute. It's 1 and it's 3 generic 1 blue mana sorcery, and it returns all creatures, I think, to their owner's hand. Engulf the Shore. That's the one. I've been waiting for an Engulf the Shore reprint for literal years since they first printed it, and this card was almost it, but it's not, and I'm annoyed.
I see.
I love Engulf the Shore, man. That card is so sweet.
I'm so sorry, man. You loved it so much you forgot its name.
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, it's been like 5 years. It's been like 5 literal years since I even saw the freaking card.
Just, hey, it's okay to do that with cards. Not good with significant others, just going to warn you.
Well, that's why I don't marry my Magic cards like some people do. So, Consuming Tide, 2 blue, sorcery at rare. Each player chooses a non-land permanent they control. Return all non-land permanents not chosen this way to their owner's hands. Then you draw a card for each opponent who has more cards in their hand than you. Better in Commander. In Standard, I don't know. Does this show up?
I don't know. Obviously, each player keeps their best thing.
Mm-hmm.
If your deck goes tall instead of wide, that's pretty good. Most of the time, you can probably draw a card with this, so it replaces itself. It's 4 mana, so it's kind of early. I have to play with it. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a dud. Like, I would not craft this if I were you, the listener at home. I need to try it. I just think there might be something to it.
Yeah, it's a card to keep an eye on. I feel like there are combo decks maybe that play a lot of eggs or, stuff like that, which can kind of really go off and do stuff with a card like this. That's what I see it in. It's kind of like a combo deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Enabler. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see on this one.
Okay, sweet. Circle of Confinement. 1 and a white enchantment at uncommon. When Circle of Confinement enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less until Circle of Confinement leaves the battlefield. Whenever an opponent casts a vampire spell with the same name as a card exiled with Circle of Confinement, you gain 2 life. So this is basically like
Baffling End-ish?
Baffling End, yeah. It's like a
Glass
Baffling
Casket.
End reprint with a little upside.
I guess it's way more Glass Casket, right? Because they get the thing back if they kill it. Yeah.
That's it. So yeah, it's like Glass Casket with a little upside. Weak to different cards. Sure. Yeah, this will show up. You'll play it, right?
It's an option. I might play it. Depends how many Devastating Masteries I enjoy.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Just an option. It's good if like Indestructible becomes a thing again. Yeah.
Tell you what, man, like if vampires are really hitting the best of 1 ladder, you're going to be happy to run these, I think.
I'm going to say this, like we're kind of hitting the home stretch, and this is the answers category. So a lot of my review of all of these, for the most part, is going to be like, yeah, this this does this job, it could show up, and you'll craft it if you want to do that job. So and it's a lot of like uncommon. So I don't know if putting it at the end was right for the hype, but it's worth noting all of these cards.
Totally. Yeah. And we don't have to spend a lot of time on them.
Right.
So let's move on to the next one. I do actually think this card is very sweet. Valorous Stance, 1 and a white instant add uncommon. Choose 1. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn, or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. I feel like this is. Go ahead.
I've got an idea. All right. For the destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater side, let's play a game. Let's go back and forth, like hitting the ball. Like you name a creature that's currently played in standard that it kills, and then it's my turn, and we'll see who can. Who lasts?
That sounds good. So kick us off, CGB.
Smoldering Egg.
Old Growth Troll.
Lear, Disciple of the Drowned.
Goldspan Dragon.
Isika's Chariot.
The Skullport Merchant.
Moonveil Regent. Damn it.
Some Tree Folk.
Some Tree Folk. The Renin 7 Tree Folk, most likely, for sure, right?
Yeah.
Kazandu Mammoth with Landfall.
No, you're right. 4 or greater. Oh, yeah, I forgot. We've been naming the 4 toughness ones.
Yep.
Oh, man. Vorinclex. Taste of Vorinclex.
Wow, nobody plays that card, but okay, fine. God, I had a good one, too. Hold on. Adeline.
Oh, yeah, Adeline is pretty big botted, huh? So
it does hit something in mono white, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on, but the point is that this hits a lot of things, right? So the great thing about this card is that, like, if the first half isn't good, the second half's probably good, right? Like, it plays well against control. It plays well against, like, so here are like some problems that white decks run into. A of all, you can just run against like a control-y deck that's trying to sweep the board to kill all your creatures. So this works in that scenario. B of all, you can play against some annoying like mono green deck where all of their creatures are bigger than yours and you just get brick walled and it's really annoying. And this card solves both of those problems. So I don't know how much space you find for this in your mono white deck, but I have to imagine this is going to be a pretty sweet sideboard card.
It existed in a pretty powerful standard format, and it was very often a one of. And then there would be like two or three, like 1 or 2 more in the sideboard. So like one of main deck just to keep people on their toes, and 1 or 2 more in the sideboard. Yep.
Yeah. So I just rock solid card. I definitely think it's going to show up. The question is just how many and where. All right, let's move on to Inspired Idea. I'm surprised you put this one on the list because I would not have. So 2 and a blue sorcery at rare. Draw. It has cleave. We'll read the card first. Draw 3 cards in brackets. Your maximum hand size is reduced by 3 for the rest of the game. But if you pay the cleave cost, which is 3 blue, you just get to draw 3 cards. So really, CGB?
3 mana for 3 cards is above rate. Like, they don't do that, especially without like significant downside. And they found a clever way to create a downside for this card by, it's not letting
nasty downside.
Oh, it's a nasty downside. It's evil downside. But when you need those 3 cards early, like you mulliganed or you already played out your toys because you're being aggressive, then this can be a big deal. And then theoretically, once you cast it once for the 3 mana, it's either late in the game and you have a bunch of mana, so it doesn't really matter. You can just play the cards you draw, or you can pay the full 5. So, like, you shouldn't have to reduce your hand size to 1 anytime soon unless the game is literally on the line or you can put things away. So card draw is really hard in the various kind of Azorius and mono blue, like tempo-y Delver-ish decks that people have tried to build. It's too expensive. We also need a cheap counterspell, which not sure if this set really provided it, but at least we have something here to refill the hand when things have gone badly. And I'm thinking not on turn 3 very often, but more like turn 5, you hold up 2 mana to interact in some way and you draw an extra 3 cards, and it helps you get over the finish line and you win the game. I think that the tempo decks are going to play like some number of this, maybe 2.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's really niche, but I think they will. I think it would be right to.
Since when did tempo decks draw their cards on their own turn, though?
Yeah, you're going to have to leave up another kind of interaction, but you do need cards. Like, have you tried casting Memory Deluge in those decks? You just fall
Well, I
behind.
mean, well, here's the thing though, is just like also like when have blue decks struggled with card advantage anytime lately? Like it's not really an issue,
When
right?
they're aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hear what you're saying. It's just not describing the actual
Yeah.
format and decks that I'm imagining.
Yeah, it's a different kind of deck that we haven't been able to build because we don't have the tools. I think this is a step in the right direction, at least.
I suppose I could see this in like that kind of low curve Delver deck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where you're just like most of your spells cost 1 or 2 mana and you're just kind of just chugging, right?
Yep.
You're just chugging through your deck.
Sure.
I could see
Thermo
it,
Alchemist?
but
You want some Thermo Alchemist?
yeah, I can see it, but I don't know, man. I feel like we're just not. When was the last time a sorcery speed card draw spell saw any kind of real play in standard?
I mean, when's the last time it was 3 mana, draw 3? How about Teachings of the Archaic, since you wanted to go there?
Sure, but like we get to decide, right? Like we get to decide A of all if we even get that card, and B of all like the right time to cast it. Also, Teachings of the Archaics can draw you 3 cards without reducing your maximum hand size for 3 mana, right? So, I mean, let's be real about that too. I would not be casting
because you had no cards when you cast it.
if Teachings of the Archaics came with this downside, I'd reach for it a lot less. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like I have a vision for what could work, and that you are just like, nope, don't see it, not doing it.
I don't.
All right,
I don't.
That's fine.
I think
That's
this
fine.
card's a 0. I think it's a super 0.
I don't recommend that I don't recommend anybody just craft it on week 1, but I think it's a brewable card.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Next card, Syncopate. This is a reprint. Blue and X. Instant, counter target spell unless its controller pays X. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. I think a lot of our crafties should already be familiar with this card. We had it in standard not so long ago. Is there any like kind of what should I say? Is there anything specific about this format that you think people should pay attention to in regards to Syncopate?
Oh yeah. This format doesn't have a 2 mana hit everything counterspell outside of Jwari Disruption, and this one scales up. Like it's really nasty to have some mix of Test of Talents, Negate, or Disdainful Stroke in your opening hand because you don't know if or when they're going to be useful in any way. But Syncopate finds a target. It finds its money eventually.
It finds a way.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with treasure, right? I feel like the existence of treasure makes Syncopate even scarier. Yeah. Yeah, this card's going to be pretty scary, man.
Yeah, so I think that this is actually... It's going to be a competitor as far as the counterspell suite goes. I've really been turned off of Saw It Coming because I don't want to spend turn 2 foretelling it, and I have trouble finding 3 mana. But the fact that this can counter something for 1 mana and the opponent always has to wonder about it, I'm probably going to be trying like 2 or 3 of these to start with in every blue deck I play and make it prove to me it doesn't belong.
Here's the other thing, man. You're going to counter your opponent's memory deluge, and the first time it happens, they're going to wonder where that memory deluge went.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gonna be a great time. Yep.
Oh yeah. I think this card is going to see plenty of play around the format. The last time it was around, it was rarely a 4 of, often a 2 of.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like this card's just been a rock solid staple in every standard it's been in, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Great card. Let's talk about Wash Away. This is also a card that could actually see a fair amount of play in this particular format. So Wash Away, 1 blue mana, instant at uncommon. It's another cleave card. The text is counter target spell, and then the bracket is that wasn't cast from its owner's hand. If you pay the cleave cost, 1 blue, then you just get to counter any. It's just a cancel, right? Yep. So we all know which spells we're thinking of countering with this card.
So 1 blue, counter something that wasn't cast from the player's hand. And 3 blue, regular, just the same counter spell you see all the time. 3 mana, counter anything. Yep. So not a lot of downside. Floor is a pretty medium card, you know? We run a cancel with a tiny bit of upside all the time.
Yeah.
So How much does this show up? Because it can hit foretell cards for 1 mana. It can hit flashback cards for 1 mana. It can hit those siphoned insight cards, disturb cards.
You know what else is it works well with Spellbinder? It can hit those too.
Those Leer flashback things that can't be countered. Sure. Just kidding.
Oh yeah, right.
But it's
you
true.
Had me there. Actually, you had me there.
This card and Spellbinder is actually quite the combo for sure.
Cool little combo, yeah. This is definitely our like mystical dispute replacement. I think this card is great. I think this card's going to see play in older formats as well. I just think that this is a really cool and needed card.
Yeah.
So the real question, CovertGoBlue, is how many of these are you going to day one be running in your best of one lists?
I'm probably going to go with 2 of these and 2 syncopates and see who wins.
Okay.
Yep. We're going to fight it out.
But, definite sideboard card. You're going to see like 2 to 4 of these in sideboards all over the place.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see if this actually changes the format. I think a big problem with the card is it had to be blue because it says target counter spell, but it is blue. It continues to push the problem that if you're going to combat the turns deck, you have to play more blue. And unlike Alrund's Epiphany, this card can get duressed.
That's true. Yep, that's true.
Sad.
So, all right, off the dome, better or worse in this standard than Mystical Dispute was when it was printed?
Ooh. That's so
interesting
tricky
question, right?
Because when Mystical Dispute was printed, was printed, Oko was printed at the same time.
That's true.
And Dispute ended up being one of the only reasonable answers to that filthy, dirty card.
I'll tell you what, man, the Simic Flash was a big deck in that format too, and you really wanted this card against them.
That's too much. Wash Away can't live up to that.
Okay.
I mean, because against Mono White, it's just a terrible cancel. I mean, Mystical Dispute was kind of similar in that vein, but they had almost the same floor, and Dispute was easier to cast.
That's true. I do think, however, that, this countering Alrund's Epiphany is like the Oko of this format, right? And the fact that it also hits like Memory Deluge and like, a flashbacked Galvanic Iteration, like this is pretty hard targeting the Izzet deck for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Next up, witness the future. I have seen the future, and it is a sorcery. 2 and a blue. Sorcery at uncommon. Target player shuffles up to 4 target cards from their graveyard into their library. You look at the top 4 cards of your library, then put one of those cards into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. CovertGoBlue, you just like making people miserable, don't you?
You already know what I'm going to do. This is my win con. I'm going to play like 3 of these, and they're just going to shuffle themselves back in because they don't exile themselves. And we're never going to leave. Never. No. I'm going to get back every test of talents, every syncopate. I'm going to get back every single counter wash away. And I'm never going to attack you. Not once. I'm not even playing a creature land.
Weren't you already off this plan, though?
I got already off of it. Yeah, I got off Devious Cover up because... It was too hard to resolve. You like this better
than Devious?
Dude, it digs you for more answers. It draws you... It's card draw. Like, we can play this instead of some of our card draw effects. I don't know. I'm going to do it. I'm not saying it's good. I think
you're trolling.
I'm going to do it.
Crafties, I think you're getting trolled right now. That's what I think's happening.
I promise you there are people on this channel that are nodding like, I got all day, Arjuna. I can play a game of best of one longer than we can record this podcast. That's how much I love it.
CGB, as soon as I read this card, I witnessed the future and we were having this conversation on the cast. So good job, both of us, right? All right. Dread Fugue. I'm stoked about this card. I think this card is great. 1 black mana for a sorcery at uncommon. It's another cleave card. So the text reads, target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, brackets, with mana value 2 or less, end brackets, that player discards that card. The cleave cost is 2 and a black. So basically how this breaks down is if you cast this for 1 black mana, you get to make your opponent look at your opponent's hand, make them discard a card with mana value 2 or less, non-land, by the way. And then if you pay the full cost, it's just any non-land card.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, this card is just great, right?
I'm really mad it can't hit Alrund's Epiphany on turn 1.
Yeah, that does kind of suck.
I'm really mad because that was like it's your only chance, right? Because they foretell it. Yeah, but right. This card is awesome because it has so much text in every matchup. Every matchup you can play this and hit something. It's going to be it seems impossible. You want to play the game? You want to go back and forth? See if we can go 5 rounds? Should be easy.
Oh God. All right, sure. 5 rounds. Let's go.
Expressive Iteration.
Syncopate.
Shatter Skull Smashing.
The Aspirant.
Darn it, I was going to say that one. Werewolf Pack Leader.
Deadly Dispute.
Ranger
Come
Class.
on, clock's ticking, CGB.
Ranger Class.
That mythic dumb red vampire.
Intrepid Adversary.
How about the Dome Blade?
I think we went 5 rounds, but I'll say Sun Gold Sentinel. I mean, you could go on forever. It's such a low curve format. Have you seen like every deck? Their like curve is like a middle finger at 2.
Yes. You know what you know what my favorite thing to do with this is? All right, you know those times when your dumb Izzet opponent keeps a 2-lander and one of the lands is Jwari Disruption? Man, Dread Fugue, got him, taste it.
Yeah, a lot of times they keep it because of iteration too, and I'm not sure which one's better to take. Iteration's a huge hit with this card. Huge.
Well, versus me, they just always draw the land, and
right. Versus me, they just draw another iteration.
Yeah, so you can't win either way.
But yeah, this card is awesome.
Yeah, I think this card is a rock solid player. I think it's going to show up all over the place. I think it's great.
Does it replace Duress, or do you like if you were a Duress deck, and there's a lot of honestly at the end of the format, a lot of 4 Duress decks right now.
Yeah,
is this like 4 and like maybe some Duress in the sideboard?
That is an excellent question, right? Because it doesn't hit a lot of the things you're most worried about. It doesn't hit Chariot. Doesn't hit Alrund's Epiphany.
That's right.
Doesn't hit Lear.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of other cards that just make you like quake in your boots, right?
I think you have to take
Ren
a hard
7.
Yeah, you got to take like a hard look at what your deck deals with and what it doesn't deal with. Yeah.
Yeah. I see this going really well in like a black aggro deck.
Oh yeah.
You know,
let's go.
Like that's really the ideal place for it. And here's the other thing, right? This is like an ideal thing where like you play a deck and you're like, I have X number of discard spells that are just good in my strategy. And then you just put some Duresses in the sideboard, right? And you can just literally switch them out if you want. Or you can just bring in Duress if you're like, discard's really good against this matchup. You just bring in some Duress and you feel good about all of it.
In Historic, you have Inquisition and you have Thoughtseize, and now you have Duress and you have Dreadfugue. It's good.
Yep. It's just like, it's a really good main deck card, right? Because it's like, it's rarely dead. Whereas like, oh man, don't get me started on these freaking memers main decking Duress and the best of one standard play queue. Like, screw those people, man. I know you're one of them. You at least have the good sense to run like Esper and have like ways to, you know, draw, discard them and stuff.
Right.
I'm looking at you like stupid black aggro decks that just run 4 main deck Duress and they just get me somehow. I hate it.
How's your voice? You want me to finish this?
You suck.
Okay. You want,
actually, why don't you take us out here, CGB?
So, next card is Path of Peril. For 1 black, you get a sorcery. Destroy all creatures with mana value 2 or less. Or you can pay the cleave cost, which is 4 and a white-black, 6 mana, and destroy all creatures. What do we think of cleaving damnation here?
This reminds me most of Cry of the Carnarium. It hits some cards that didn't and misses some cards that did. My real question is there like an Orzhov deck that's going to want to run this?
Yeah, I don't know. about that. I have trouble thinking of one, but I also know that treasures just kind of fly around these days. And
That's a good
there's
point.
also the Celestis, which can pay that white mana. So I don't think
Another good point.
There's also like the mana is incredible. You can just play Pathways and play it on white if you want to. So I think there are ways around that to cleave it when you want to. What I like about this card is that for 3 mana, you get all the cat tokens, all the wolf tokens, all the tree folk tokens at a really low cost. Like that's pretty good.
In fact, no, you're right. Like, this is going to look fairly good against mono green in general, because if you think about it, like the old growth troll is one of the few things in the deck this won't hit at 3 mana, right?
Yep.
Because pretty much all the rest of their threats are either tokens or 2 mana value or less creatures.
Yeah.
Especially now with the stupid 2/1 wolf running around.
Yep. Yeah, this is going to hit a lot against mono white. There are some white decks that don't even play those 3 drops, but the 3 drops are really good in mono white, so it is a bit of a struggle there. It's not a perfect card. I don't think that this replaces Blood in the Snow at all. I think Blood in the Snow is a much more powerful card, but it could accompany it for early action, much like Meat Hook Massacre. Like, the Massacre, you have to get the mana for it, right? And it's kind of a race to get the mana for it before the Aspirant is huge, and this kills the Aspirant regardless of its size. So
yeah,
we'll see.
It's hard for me to see this one fitting in exactly, but I will say that there's an established history of cards like this showing up somewhere, so I definitely wouldn't count it out.
I wouldn't be surprised by a mix that's like 2 Path of Peril, 2 Meat Hook Massacre, 3 Blood in the Snow, something like that.
Yeah. One of the things I will say, one of the reasons Cry of the Carnarium was so nice is that, like, a lot of these black and red aggressive creatures have higher power than toughness. And so your ability to, like, tag your opponent's 3-drop along with their 2s and 1-drops were really nice. And I think you're going to do that less with Path. Well, you're never going to tag your opponent's 3-drop. So, you know, I think on balance, this card is probably going to end up being worse, but it just all depends on what the format looks like.
The next card I'm going to cover is Abrade. This is a staple. It's a reprint. It's 1 in red for an instant. You get to choose one of these 2 amazing abilities. 3 damage to any target creature. 3 damage to any target creature. Awesome phrasing from me. That's not what it reads. It reads deals 3 damage to target creature. And then the other mode
not just target, any target CGB.
The other mode is destroy target artifact. So
okay,
bolt a thing or destroy an artifact.
You know what I was going to say? I was going to be like, well, this was better the last time it was printed because we were in a vehicles matter, but we actually are in a vehicles matter right now. So, yeah. I did want to ask you, though, like, we now have a lot of options, right? I mean, like, how many freaking deal 3 red spells for 2 mana do we have currently? We have, like, a bunch of them.
We have Dragon's
Fire. We have the one that also shuffles the cards. You know what I mean? Draw, discard.
Cathartic Fire.
Yeah. And then we have other ones for 1 and a red, too, that do other stuff.
We have Thundering Rebuke for 4 damage. Yep. And we've got Abrade.
So anyway, yeah, this is just one of many, many options. But do you think on balance, this is better? Again, I'm going to ask the same question. Do you think this is better or worse in this format than the last time it was printed?
Worse.
I think so, too. I think it's substantially worse, but all it takes now, here's the thing, though, is that this is going to be in standard at the same time as our return to the Brothers' War, right? And I anticipated that being an artifact set, and this could be an absolutely crucial card when that set releases. True. Or just any time before then, if we just have like another Ember Cleave or another just like really key problematic artifacts in the format.
Agreed. Yeah, it's going to be one of those things. It's going to fluctuate depending on what's going on, and it's a good option to have at common. And
absolutely.
So that was a rarity downgrade. Here's another one. Hero's Downfall. 1 black instant, uncommon, destroy target creature or planeswalker.
So you didn't have this on the list. I'm curious to hear why that is.
I don't like paying 3 mana to kill things that like a thing anymore. I'm just off it.
You're just off it. That's fair. That's fair. I think the card still shows up, but I think it's way worse than the last time it was printed.
I'll try it. I'm not about that murder life, you know? The Planeswalker text is mostly flavor until some of these new Planeswalkers prove to be amazing. Maybe Sorin can do that because I still like that card. But otherwise, it's murder. If there isn't a good Planeswalker to hit, it's murder.
It's interesting how giving your opponent a clue for 1 mana cheaper is just so, like, you're so much happier with that exchange, right?
Often, yeah. It's all about what you can hold open and what you do with a mana these days. It's a very tempo-based format.
Yeah, also, like, our mana's good, but double black is not nothing. So
not easy.
It's a thing to think about as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I just put it on here because I just figured we should acknowledge it. It'll probably show up.
That's right. These last 4 are yours.
Yep, that's right. You just glossed over a bunch of what I think are going to be like staple removal spells in the format. So I thought that was interesting.
Okay. So the next one is Parasitic Grasp, 1 in a black instant, and it deals 3 damage to target human creature, and you gain 3 life. Or you can cleave it, 1 black to deal 3 damage to target creature and gain 3 life.
I think this card's going to show up.
Yeah, me too.
I can see why you didn't include it, but I think it's going to show up.
It's another murder.
No, here's the thing, though. This is a lightning helix.
Yeah.
It's a lightning helix.
Yeah, it's not, though. It's really not. Look,
all right.
Sometimes you'll want this effect. And this always, like, Essence Extraction, I think, was the last version in Standard, and they played it here and there. Yep, because of the tempo
this card's
and the speed.
Much better than that card.
It is significantly better. So, yeah, it'll show up. I eventually stopped putting murder on the list. There's a lot of good removal options, and I don't think they change much about the format yet. They're just going to rise and fall in popularity depending what is popular in the aggro decks.
Yeah, I think that this card, especially with how popular mono white is at the moment, I just think this card's going to see play in some amount. I think that you should play it in some amount in your sideboards because it really is just so much better against the white deck in particular than any of your other options.
You know what my favorite target for it is? Can you guess? You want to take one guess? I'll give you one guess. It's a really good one.
I'm going to guess it's not a white creature. Your favorite target for this? Let me think about it.
3 damage to target human creature, and you gain 3 life. For 2 mana.
Is it the werewolf pack leader?
That is a good guess, but the answer is Faceless Haven.
Oh, that's a very good target. That's an excellent target. You know what? That bumps it up a whole level right there. God love it. Okay, take us on to this next one then.
Flame Blessed Bolt. It is a red mana for an instant that deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die, exile it instead. It is a common.
So this is an upgraded version of that card Magma. What was
Spray.
it? Magma what? Magma Spray. So strictly better Magma Spray because this hits planeswalkers as well.
Yes.
Yeah. These cards have pretty much always showed up in Standard when they were available. I love the ability of this to kill Ren in 7 after it makes its token. That's pretty much it.
Yep. Wolf is another, like, you exile it and now Blood on the Snow is no good. This will show up some, and again, like, same thing I've said about the other spells. I'll tell you what I hate. I'm gonna what grinds my gears. Boomer over here. All right. Magma Spray. Just we've been able to say this name for a long time. It just kind of rolls off the tongue. It's evocative. There's magma. It just shoots out a little and it melts you and you're exiled. Now I have to say, Flame Blessed Bolt.
I agree. It's a pretty square name, right?
I don't like it.
If it wasn't going to be a magma card, couldn't it have at least been like Chandra, Chandra does something badass card, right? And then we could have seen her dress. God damn it.
Fail. Next card.
Annoying.
This should have been Chandra's dress, for sure. This is called Rending Flame.
Yeah. This is going on my list of cards that CGB hates that he's going to end up playing eventually.
2 in a red instant. I wonder why. It deals 5 damage to a creature or planeswalker. If that permanent is a spirit, Rending Flame also deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller.
You're gonna curse me every time you tap mana to cast this spell, CovertGoBlue.
Never casting this out of principle.
he's
Never.
just drawing a line in the sand.
It's an uncommon,
just to
by the
spite
way.
me. Just to spite me.
Yeah. I mean, Lovestruck Beast made Soulseer get played, and it was a disaster to have to do it. The Lovestruck Beast of the format is Chariot. This isn't great against Chariot, but who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
It's probably not.
I don't want to play it.
Probably not.
I really don't want to. And by the way, favorite target for this?
Favorite target for this? Let's see. It has to have 5 toughness.
Doesn't have to. Waste. I just want that 2 damage, baby.
Oh, okay. What's a good spirit?
Faceless Haven.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Sorry.
Why would it ever be anything but Faceless Haven? I can't believe I didn't get it the second time around.
That's kind of on you.
That is kind of on me. I'm an idiot. All right. Yeah. Oh, read the. Okay, this is a functional reprint, right?
Yes, ish. I think.
Isn't it an exact reprint
it's
of
not.
the other one?
It's not. It is. Okay. All right, we'll get it.
Okay.
Lantern of the Lost. 1 colorless mana for an artifact. When Lantern of the Lost enters the battlefield, exile target card from a graveyard. 1 and a tap. Exile Lantern of the Lost. Exile all cards from all graveyards.
So it's not your opponent's graveyard?
Then draw a card. Yes.
So that was the difference?
It didn't include your graveyard in the
Got
past.
it.
Lantern of
okay.
the Lost did not exile your graveyard. This one
Got
does.
it. So what was that lantern?
Soul Guide Lantern.
Soul Guide Lantern. Why do they have to make a card which is so close in function and it's a lantern? That pisses me off.
I think it would be too one-sided. Everybody wants their graveyard in this format, so nuking the full graveyard is just too much, probably for the limited format.
Pretty nasty.
Because wouldn't this just be a really high pick for every deck?
Actually, it would. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I mean, it'd be pretty good in standard too, to be honest.
I think that there is plenty of Rest in Peace as a card, so you nuke your own graveyard sometimes. I just don't know if this makes it when I feel like Soul Guide Lantern required some degenerate stuff going on from the opponent, and Luris was a big part of a lot of the punch of that card.
Yeah. Well, it was on the one hand you had Luris, and on the other hand you had Uro. And you just really needed to never let your opponent have either of those going on. So yeah, that's a really good point. It is. I don't know. I feel like everyone's kind of using their graveyard, right? Except for mono green.
Is it? So you have to have a mana to tap it and exile it to exile all cards. So holding it up might be difficult, but it can kind of. Is it any good against iteration? They can just hold it in their hand and then cast it and flash it back in response. Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's going to get the job done. No. So
I don't think you bring it in against it.
Yeah. Okay. So what other deck uses the graveyard so much that this is what it takes? It's a good failsafe to have, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't think the deck exists yet. Or if it currently exists with the cards revealed, no one's really put it together and made it good yet. So, yeah, I think this is just going to chill until you need it, and you'll probably need it at some point. All right. Mm-hmm. Last card on the list. 3 hours, 21 minutes on my record time right now. Yep.
You put this under, quote, oddities. I'll let you have the honor.
Okay, all right. The only potentially ramp playable card in the set, from what I can see, is Cartographer's Survey. 3 and a green, sorcery at uncommon. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put up to 2 land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, if you want to stop me and be like, but Arjuna, if you play the one from Zendikar Rising, which guarantees 2 land drops, why wouldn't you just play that one instead, right? Now, what the heck is that card
Vastwood Surge.
Vastwood Surge, right? Just seems like a much better card than this. But, if you read this card more closely, it can be any lands. They don't have to be basic. So, I'm not saying that this card's going to see a lot of play. I currently don't even like Vastwood Surge. But, yeah, it's a good card to know about, and it's good to remember that this card can get any lands.
Hostile. Let's go.
Okay. Okay. What's that one called? The vampire one. The
Did
vampire
you just
one.
F-bomb trying to think of a vampire land?
I'm sorry, CGB's channel.
Olivia's
I've been a little loose lips
Castle
this review.
Voldaren or
Castle
yeah,
Voldaren, that's
yeah,
the one I'm thinking of.
sure. You're gonna play this card with your vampire
In my vampire
tribal
deck. It's my John vampire deck, bro. Give me a break.
I bet that's better than my hostility.
Maybe. No, I mean Westvale Abbey. Come on, just print it. Print it, you cowards.
Print it, you cowards. Guys,
anyway, yeah,
that's the set.
Knows?
That's it. Okay. We've talked about the cards. We talked about some cards last week. You at the beginning seemed very like, I don't think this set is going to change much. You want to go into? You want to give a little something for that? Because I don't think we hit it during the show.
That's not exactly how I phrased it. I just said that I think that this might be the weakest set since Strixhaven, and I'm standing by that, man. I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's going to be like some super sweet vampires and or zombies deck, which is going to turn everything around or whatever. But like, really, what is here? What is here that isn't either just like another good card in an existing archetype, or like it's just like random other removal spells or whatever? Like I'm not seeing it, man. I'm not seeing it.
I feel like the Simic Sultai Mage over there is sad that you got no new toys that you like.
Dude.
I mean, that's fair. I don't think you did. I think
I didn't. But like, shafted. I have once in a while played colors that weren't those, and I'm just not seeing it, man. I'm not seeing it. Like, what are we really stoked about in this set? Like honestly, what are we really stoked about here?
I think that black aggro gets a lot better. I think that the vampire deck will be able to put a clock on that will be creating hoops for the decks, for like the control decks and the epiphany decks to jump through. Whether or not they can mingle with the other creature decks, mono white and mono green, they are so good. Like that's a tall order. It's tough.
That's what I'm saying.
So we gotta pair those up and see if they can, really spar in that arena. I think werewolves still suck. It's very sad. But I think we got a lot of things to try. I still feel like we have a lot of things to try. It does scare me that I feel like Izzet got more juice, and I don't know if the tools are necessarily better. The current Izzet decks are great. There's probably a build for the meta that's better given some of these tools. It's kind of gross.
So, well, okay, let me ask you this question. Let me phrase it to you this way, CGB. Is there any zombie or vampire in this set as good as Thalia?
And
I'll say as good as Thalia is in that mono white deck.
So it has to have a home, like it just has to slot in, done. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or even just like any of these, cheap vampires or zombies that we've seen, which is going to be as good in their respective decks as Thalia is in the mono white deck.
You had said zombie. I'm going to be playing that grafted amalgam, the one that counters a spell or an ability in like the blue-black, like Sedgemoor Witch style builds. Hunt for specimens and that. And I think that's going to be really good.
It's a good card. I just don't think it's going to be nearly as good as Thalia.
I mean, it ignores Thalia. It's just,
gotcha,
Thalia. Ambush Thalia.
Got him. All right, here's the next question. Is there a one drop in either the zombies or the vampires deck which is as good as Ascendant Pack Leader is going to be in mono green?
I think that Champion of the Perished got a lot better. A lot better.
That's an argument. It was close
to unplayable before, and now it has like a sweet curve to play with.
Because this is what I'm looking at, right? I'm looking at the two aggro decks in the format right now. They both got excellent additions.
They did.
Right?
They did.
And they're both already excellent.
Yep.
And I'm just like, as good as vampires, or as much as vampires improved, I'm just not sure they're going to be able to keep up with either of those two decks. As much as zombies improved, I'm not sure they're going to be able to keep up with either of those two decks. Prove me wrong. I mean, like, I would love it if I was wrong about this, but it's just really hard for me to see what we've got here competing with those existing two really excellent archetypes.
Yes. If the matchup head to head with the zombies or the vampires deck with green and white is negative, then they're unplayable. So
They're
they
unplayable.
have to prove that the black removal is worth it. And it's hard because there's so much value in these decks. But that is something they get. They get universal removal. I mean, Infernal Grasp wasn't that great of a card because there was no aggro to play it with, really. You were hurting yourself too much. But now you have a clock for the opponent, so maybe it's good. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, and then it's just tough, right? Because like the other like really excellent and dangerous cards that I see go into Izzet, right? We have Alchemist, Gambit, and Abrade, which are like just two of the best. So it's just like I'm not seeing anything else here, which is just making me think, wow, like, wow, we're really heading strong into a new archetype, or like, wow, this is really going to upset things. Like I frankly, I just kind of see more of the same going on.
I do not see a way to save midrange in this set.
I'll
be very clear about that. I think midrange is just as dead as it was before until these turns cards are gone.
Probably deader, to be honest.
Yeah, because the aggro decks are just like, they're better mid-range decks. They just kill you faster, and their cards do everything they need them to do already.
Isn't it infuriating that mono green is like somehow a better aggro deck than all of the other ones except white? And then it's a better mid-range deck than like any of the mid-range decks. That's just so tilting.
Oh, yeah, because every card in it is absurd rate. But I mean, we're kind of getting into the weeds. I think that we're getting into this format already, and we haven't played it yet. So let's...
Yeah.
Whoo! But...
Cool down, Arjuna.
But, I think that there are enough new cards to at least re-examine what happens, and hopefully a lot of different colors and different kinds of aggro decks can make Izzet miserable. That's my main hope,
Yeah. I think that the scab, the counterspell scab you mentioned, is like the strongest card in the set, in my opinion, for potentially ushering us into a different archetype. And I would be really, really excited if that were the case. Because to be honest, crafties, I'm not feeling the vampires, I'm not feeling the zombies. So if we get some kind of sweet like Dimir Flash/Sack deck going on, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, maybe we'll be talking about it next week when we've had a day with the new cards. It's going to be fun.
Awesome sauce. Well, thanks, crafties, for sitting through almost 4 hours of this set review. We try to keep these short, and they still go very long. But hopefully you're excited about it because you love hearing about us talk about Magic as much as we love talking about Magic. So catch us next week for, what's going to be an incredible amount of fun as we dive into the actual format and how it's shaping up. You can find that show and this show and any of our shows on the podcatcher of your choice. We're pretty much on all of the networks. We're also on Spotify. You can see me looking fabulous and CovertGoBlue looking, he always looks fabulous, but maybe a little less fabulous than I am today. On CovertGoBlue's YouTube channel, just go on YouTube and search for CovertGoBlue. We have a Patreon, and the Patreon keeps everything going, and we really appreciate all of our contributing members. So please keep that up. Don't stop. We love all of you, y'all. All right, CGB, I will let you have the last word here. Take us out.
Later, crafties.